Hey everybody, welcome to a mid-afternoon Sunday live stream. I had some extra time and thought, why not stream extra today? There'll still be the live stream later, which will be talking about guppies and answering questions as normal, but I thought I would just get an extra one in. So, first question I've got here, and this is kind of the format that I enjoy, is the kind of Q&A. James is asking, do you guys know when you'll get the watermelon stem plant back in stock? And the answer to that is no, we don't. So this plant, I've known about it and kept it and sold a bunch of it for over the last like 10, 12 years. And the farms would get versions that wouldn't look like the little watermelons. So they didn't have the little white lines and everything on it. And so we tracked it down again after not being able to get it for a long time. Got it to the farm. They made some and they make some, but not enough. And so part of that problem is when we bring a plant to the farm, they start making it, and other stores will want to buy it too, right? And so they don't love to rush into a new plant because they don't know how well it'll grow year round. They don't know what the demand is for it. They don't know if they're going to have success with it. They don't know how it ships. And so even though we assure them, like, we've basically have done this before, make us all of it, I can sell unlimited amounts practically, there's still huge lag time in industry. And anyone that works in different industries probably sees that, where, the ramp up time might be 2 years on a product like this, which is frustrating, especially when we're used to going from like testing and all of that to production in like 3 months. And so we've already done all the testing kind of on the plant that we feel needs to be done. And so, yeah, when will it come back in stock? I have no idea. We order it every single week. We ask them every single week, like, hey, we could sell 1,000 of these this week. And they go, yep, we don't have them. And so that's all we can do. And it's super frustrating because a lot of pipelines, you can at least ask, like, hey, what is the ETA? And with the plant farms in general, there's not that many of them around the world, and they don't really offer those types of statements. So because all of them, it's kind of like what we went through with COVID and everything. If everybody raises the price of fast food, then fast food is just expensive. And if they're all just doing it, there's not really a lot you can do about it till someone cracks. And so until someone cracks at one of these farms and it's like, hey, we will start building out schedules and things like that, we are in the dark. And it's not from a lack of effort. We've flown out there several times. We've tried to invest in their companies. We've tried to rent essentially grow beds and everything. Like, can you guarantee this part of the farm is for us? Can we, we buy the workers lunches. We do a bunch of these things trying to kind of get that, I guess, working together relationship we're looking to get. And so far, it just hasn't been successful. So when will the watermelon be back in stock? It could be every week, basically. Every week, you just got to check, and that's a lame system, but it's the system that we get to as well. I could lie and be like, oh, it's going to be 4 weeks, 2 years, 10 months. That would purely be guessing. So you get to check every week just like we do, and we keep everything we can in stock. This week, I don't know, let me see if it's that way right now. As of yesterday, we had 61 of 62 plants in stock, and that's generally our MO. We want to get things in, and we want to keep them in stock and keep them as reliable as possible, where a lot of companies that sell plants will just go for the widest choice possible. They might have 250 listings, and they're hoping to keep 50 in stock. And I find that, yeah, we still have 61 out of 62 in stock. I find that doesn't lend itself to dialing in processes and getting your plants to you happier and healthier, and getting the farm forecasting better and all of these things. And so if you just go with a wide swath, you're going to have any random amount of plants at any one time, and that's something. But we try much harder to go, well, if we're going to go to 70 plants in stock, we need them to be in stock. And so we're hoping that they can catch up with Ladernia rotundifolia watermelon. And don't be caught out, by the way. Ladernia rotundifolia does get sold by these farms and other places, but it's not the watermelon version, so it doesn't look like that. And so just know that we've tested all the farms when they had Ladernia, and it was not the watermelon version. And in my opinion, the watermelon part of it is exactly what makes it desirable. So, can I turn on closed captioning? I don't believe so. I believe so. Every time that this has come up and someone's asked, like, "Hey, your thing's not doing a thing," it usually fixes itself, and I don't believe that's a setting I can actually control as closed caption. Let's see. Yeah, it literally is. So at the moment, it is blacked out. I cannot click that switch um, on my stream. So closed captioning is apparently not capable. And there might be a thing. So I'm streaming under normal latency. Maybe if I like find a way to put a higher delay or something in, but even I'm not seeing that option. So it looks like I can't control that. The post, after the live stream is up and going, it'll have closed captions and all of that. But during while it's live, for some reason, I don't have that option. Let's see here. I haven't even started water changes yet. Yeah. I've been doing lots of changes. In fact, here you can see, like, wait, that's a whole different landscape than what you had, and all the clown loaches are gone. Is that all I moved out? Clown loaches? Yeah, I think all the clown loaches. And did a little bit of planting. You can see some plants kind of behind my head, and I actually put a little bit of CO2 to it. And there's more to be done, but that's basically what I've been doing is hiding from the public and working on all these aquariums as much as possible, which is still taking a ton of time. And if you followed my personal Facebook, you saw I posted a little glimpse of the 800 gallon over there, looking super cool, but has a green water bloom, and I've got a UV sterilizer in there, but it's undersized. I've actually got a whole filtration thing that will be here middle of next month that will incorporate UV the way I want it to, and so kind of treading water with that. Leo 209 Aquatics, for pleco breeding and a 40 breeder, what would be the best way to set up the co-op sponge filters with the easy flow to get the most flow, and how many? Well, you could literally do, the whole back row of that tank being sponge filters. I don't think you need that. I would probably just go for two. So that way you've got plenty of room for caves and just it looks okay and all of that. So I'd probably put like one in each back corner and kind of have each of them pointing diagonally towards the center of the tank, and that'll kind of get that current going. And then the best thing you can do, really, if you're really looking for flow, would be using like a linear air piston pump, because it lots and lots of liters. And so the example I can give you is like our air pump does about a little bit less than a liter or a liter, depending on how long the airline tubing is, the check valves, how deep the tank is. There's like a bunch of factors that I still got to make that video, but and then the linear air piston pump that's running this whole fish room, basically, one of those outlets will put out 10 to 15 times as much air, just because it's built to put out way more air and be able to go deeper in tanks and all of that. And so there is a limit to how much air you can put through one of our easy flows, but it's very high in my opinion, and the water starts moving like a power head. And I'm not always confident that you would even want that much flow, but the fact that you'd have that capacity would allow you to dial it into where you want it to be. And when I'm talking power head, like if you lift it up, water will shoot out like 6-8 inches onto the floor. Like you got to be careful when you're moving it and stuff, because it can move that much water when it's dialed in. And so also when you have them moving that fast, it's like having a power head. And so you will gunk up your sponge, maybe clog it in a week or a month, or much faster than normal. And so it's not uncommon for people to really kind of optimize their sponge filter or go from a normal sponge filter to an easy flow, and they'd be like, hey, it got clogged up really fast. Like, yeah, you just collected all the gunk that wasn't getting collected before. And so it's kind of like if you ever had that experience of buying a new vacuum that's powerful. You can literally like vacuum with your normal aquarium and then vacuum with the new one and be like, wow, that's all that it was missing. But you don't fault the new vacuum for going, oh man, you fill up with dirt so much faster. It's like, oh, you're doing your job so much better. And that's actually what's going on with easy flows too, is once you get that extra airflow and the efficiency, you end up collecting more. And so it will temporarily seem like it's clogging up earlier, but after you let's say vacuum your house 3 times, then it'll actually be back to normal levels, and you might go, oh yeah, I only need to vacuum, or I only need to service a sponge filter once a month or once every 3 months. but initially it's going to collect all that extra gunk for you, and that will be a bonus, but it kind of tricks you. Let's see here. I'm trying two Shabunkins. They've been in quarantine for 3 weeks with the trio, week 1, and then aquarium salt. One is sometimes swimming swirly like a dolphin. The other is fine. Yeah, the swirly one usually means maybe it's got some parasites or something like that. Or, I mean, it could be a few things, but parasites in the brain can happen. It could also just have a defect in it. But a lot of times fish do not come back from that. And that's that where they're just kind of like they don't have control of their body as they swim and they do things. And so what you might find is that it takes another month, but then that one dies off and the other one's still going to be fine. So you might be ready to move the one that's looking good to a display. I'm not sure what, if you have a bunch of other goldfish in there or it's just going to be the first one or whatever that looks like. But you might be able to do that. And then the other one you can kind of keep trying, but I'm not sure I've ever cured it, ever. And usually it's just a sign of death for me. And so that could just be a sign that, hey, I don't know how to do it. But yeah, I will say I've had many at-bats with that, like owning a store and working at a store, 15 plus years of my life. No one's been like, oh, you know what, you just do this. Like people sometimes will say you just do that and it's never worked. So I don't have a good recipe for success to transition for you, or to not transition, to pass on, basically. Let's see here. We do have a new product. I don't have it with me, so that's unfortunate. It'll arrive tomorrow. But we have the Easy Dechlorinator. In theory, I think it pins itself or something like that. Let's see. So we have the shopping thing. It should be pinned. And then I can take you guys on a little adventure, I think. Let's see here. Can I take you on the adventure? Yeah. So we're on the website, and the new product would be in cleaning. Oh, good Lord. Here we go. Gotta scroll. Why is it not in cleaning supplies? There's already... What? Oh, it's in water care. That's why. I've got it in 2 places, but we've got the Easy Dechlorinator here. And then we've also created an Easy Bundle. And so I'm sure you guys will have questions about the Easy Dechlorinator, and that would be a perfect time to ask now. The bundle, I'll just go there first. The goal behind the bundle is that both Easy Dechlorinator and Easy Green are 1 milliliter per 10 gallons. And most people, when they're doing those water changes, they're using a dechlorinator. They're also redosing their fertilizers. And then when you got the water level down, you can also be putting in root tabs for your plants. And so by buying it in the bundle, you save money. Normally, if you bought these 3 products, you'd spend $52.97. You save, what is that, $8 or something like that? Basically, $8 if you buy it in the bundle. And then we come in 2 sizes in the Easy Dechlorinator. You get the larger size on that one, by the way. We've got the 8 ounce and we've got the 16 ounce here, and they've got the dosing cap. So that's new. I've actually had those for quite a while in my possession and playing with them and testing them. And they do 1 milliliter, 5 milliliter, and 10 milliliters. So there's no dosing pump to it. And yeah, so I'm gonna swap back over because I know there'll be questions, and I can't really see my question screen. So let's see here. Yeah, it's under water care. It's also, the bundle is also under plant supplies as well, since it has plant supplies in there. So, when are you going to add the sponge filter? I don't know what that means. I think you're talking to someone else. Any update on the small midwater aquap fish food? I think it's in port, but heavily delayed, I think is the last update I heard. And then there's also East Coast potential strike at the ports, which shouldn't affect us that bad, but whenever that starts happening, it starts affecting the whole supply chain. So, yeah. Let's see here. Just moved the healthier one to a 50 gallons, doing well. The swirly one is enjoying living out its days with the duckweed and the pond snails. It's a bummer that it probably won't recover. I mean, yeah, the odds are not good, but there's always a chance that it does. So, yeah, U.S. shipping on our products, we only ship the United States, and then we have someone who's shipping in Canada, which is April's Aquariums. So if you want to get it there. Has the black airline tubing been discontinued? Nope, it's on there. It's under airline, or not under airline, but air pumps. I'll well, let's take a trip. We'll go find it. Right? So if we go here, we go to air supplies, and that right here. I was like, where'd it go? It's right here. Yep. So you can buy airline tubing, even the 300-foot spool of it, which is what I typically keep in stock in my fish room. I'm always using it for different, little different things. But yeah, it is available for sale. You can buy it. What is the temperature in my fish room in my store? Do you recommend a heater for bettas and gouramis? Well, I can tell you the temperature in this room right now is 75 degrees, which runs my water temperature about 73-ish, depending on, like, this tank will be hotter. This one will probably be more at like 75, 76 because it has all the glass tops, where a lot of my other aquariums are 3/4 top. So I have about this much room without a top. And so I can feed and do that kind of stuff really easy. You would think that wouldn't hold any heat in, but it actually holds quite a bit still. So that's to me, that's the best of both worlds. I've covered up 3/4 of it, so I have less jumpers, not totally eliminated, but less jumpers, and I can feed without having to lift up the handle, and I can scrub the algae without having to lift up the front panel and all of that kind of stuff. So I get some good benefits there. Yeah, so works fairly well. And oh yeah, so your question was, what was the store run? The store runs, we try to keep it at opening of store at about 78 degrees, and by the end of day, it's at 81 degrees. And so lights and people and all the stuff, anything that's electronic will create heat, like even this computer I'm using and all that kind of stuff. So over, 8 hours or 10 hours of kind of the store lights being on and stuff, it'll add heat. And so that's why we get to 81 or so during the day. And do I recommend a heater? Yes. Well, it depends. Like in this fish room, I wouldn't, because like if I had a betta in this tank, it'll hold temperature really well because it's 150 gallons. But if you have it in a 5-gallon, that's not a lot of buffer in terms of water and heat retention. And so I would use a heater in a smaller vessel. Probably anything smaller than like 20 or 30 gallons really can shed heat pretty quick. I also would have a top. Like there's so many factors that go into it. Like, are you using a sponge filter or are you using a hang-on back? Do you have the light sitting on top of the tank or is it raised up a bit? Do you have a top or don't you? All of these things will affect the amount of heat. And so you can have a tank that runs really nice and warm and perfect temperature without running a heater, but you could also change enough of those things that the same setup slightly tweaked would not have enough heat. So let's see here. For those of us who don't break our pump heads and hoard them, will they fit the dechlorinator bottles? I have to go back and double check if the Easy Green pump head fits the dechlorinator bottle. The one from Complete will fit it, but I can't remember 100% if it is the same thread pattern on both of those. So if you have it from Fritz Complete, yes, it will transfer over to ours. Or I haven't tested it, but it should. It should be the same thread pattern and everything. Should. The other question that I was going to answer, does our dechlorinator detoxify ammonia and nitrates? Kind of, yes. So here's the thing. When you start doing a lot of research about dechlorinators and everything, I'm not convinced that any of them actually do that. Like detoxify, if we were having a real conversation, I would just ask you, what does detoxify mean? And you'd be like, well, make it so it doesn't hurt fish. And I'd be like, well, yeah, it does that. But it only does that for 24 hours, by the way. And then, so the way a dechlorinator, I think, that most of us want it to work without really having to think about it, is that you have chlorine or chloramine in your water, and if you do nothing with that, that'll kill your fish, right? So we need a chemical to prevent it from killing your fish. And so normally what we're doing is we are adding this chemical and it's going to break the bond of those. And a lot of times when you're breaking the bond, you create ammonia and other things, but ammonia is the one we care about. And what would normally happen in an aquarium is, let's say it was this aquarium right here. I break the bonds and now I have ammonia in there. Well, what will happen is the plants and the filtration will process it for me. So that usually just takes care of itself. But most dechlorinators, I say most because not all of them, but most do have a component in there that will bind with the ammonia to make it to be a non-toxic form to fish for up to 24 hours while still allowing filtration to process it. So if I didn't have the thing that detoxifies in there, this aquarium would handle it fine anyway. But because I have that in there, it's going to handle it fine, extra easy. And the big thing that I was talking about with my whole marketing team and my company is I don't want to promote Easy Dechlorinator as the crutch that so many other dechlorinators do. And that is, well, if you have ammonia, just dose more. Like the concept of just use more of our product and then you'll have to buy more. Does ours do that? It does, yes. But that's not a good solution. I'm not going out of my way to advertise that. Instead, if you read the description, we actually specifically call that scenario out. And I say, instead, you should be doing water changes. So if you have a situation where, let's say I set this tank up today and I'm dechlorinating and everything, and I'm breaking it down and it's detoxifying and all of that, but the fish themselves are making ammonia, I don't recommend just dose every single day until it catches up. Instead, I would recommend changing water to fight that ammonia. And, really for most people, and it's not everybody, but for most people, there's not that much chlorine, chloramine that results in ammonia after the breakdown anyway. And, there's lots of things to know, like make sure you have aeration and that kind of stuff. But yes, ours does. Basically, dechlorinators, they're all the same. I think if I'm being truthful, I think there's 2, maybe 3 chemical formulas that can break down chlorine and chloramine. Well, they're also suitable for aquariums. I'm sure there's some other stuff that could do it that would, like, that acid would just, your arm would melt off or something, and it would treat it too. But what we can use in aquariums, and so that's why you basically have 2 forms. You have stinky sulfur version, which ours is that, and it's highly concentrated and good value for your money. Or you've got non-stinky version, not concentrated at all, treats about 1/5 as much. And then you can also add stuff to it like stress coat, right? And so the stinky version is so good at breaking stuff down that you actually can't fix the stinky part. That was my original thing 5 years ago. I was like, what if we add a scent or a different chemical to a dechlorinator so that we could make it smell better? And the answer is you can't really, because it breaks it down. It's so good at breaking stuff down, it'll break down even the smell. So if you try to put perfume or citrus or anything in there, it breaks it down too. So that's kind of a bummer, but also it's made, to reduce things down, and that's what it does. So, but for the most part, there's slight tweaks, and there's people that will claim they've found the right little combo and everything. But a lot of dechlorinators are all getting made with very few different factories in the United States. So very, very similar for a lot of them. Not all of them, but a lot of them. Let's see. I've spent a lot of money on crushed coral, but with no changes to the water. Also, Seachem Equilibrium seems very expensive to use as my tank is 5 foot long and planted. Please help. Yeah, so crushed coral can only do its job, by the way, if you're not changing water like a madman. So if you change water every week, crushed coral is going to have very limited results for you. You're going to need a lot of it to get little movement. Where if you're changing water once a month, now much smaller amounts of crushed coral will buffer your water better. And so crushed coral, the way it works is like if your pH is super acidic, it's going to eat away at that crushed coral fairly quickly. But as it does that, pH keeps rising, right? And as it rises, it eats away as it slower. And eventually you start hitting like, oh, it's 7. So an example I like to use is maybe at 6.4, it'll go from 6.4 to 6.6 overnight. And then it'll go from 6.6 to 6.8 in a week. And then from 6.8 to 7 might be 3 weeks. And then from 7 to 7.2 might be 2 months, right? You see how it keeps slowing down? Well, if you're changing water a bunch, you're resetting it back each time depending on what your source water is. And so when you get to a point where maybe you've now buffered it up and it's 7.2 and you change 50% of the water, that might drop it to 6.8 again. It's going to take like a month to get back to 6.2. But if you're at 7.2 and your water is 7.0 and you change 20%, you might go, oh, it's 7.2 down to 7.1. And over the course of the month, it buffers it to 7.2 again. Not that much of a difference. And so that's the way you got to look at using crushed coral. When it comes to, basically calcium and magnesium, which is most of what people are using Equilibrium for, that, yeah, it can be pretty expensive. And that's kind of what we try and do here at Aquarium Co-op. Like our hardness product is not out yet. We've been working on it for years, and we're working on packaging and dustiness and some of the finer nuances of the thing. The thing works. Like we use it in the store. I use it here. Testing, it's fine. But we want that experience of when you're actually using it to be better. And our goal is usually to go, wow, this seems super inflated. We could probably do a better job. And then we do most times. And so that's the goal right there when we'll bring that out. But yeah, unfortunately, the cheapest way to accomplish hardness that I can think of during a live stream off the top of my head would be buying pure plaster of Paris, which is a ton of calcium, and you can actually make blocks and stuff. I've done it. I used to mix spirulina in those blocks. Most of the things that I bring to market are things that I DIY'd 15 years ago out of necessity, of like, can't afford it because I have 80 aquariums and I've got super soft water with no hardness, and I'm going to go broke buying Seachem Equilibrium. How would I do this? And then my thought process was always, I sure wish there was something more affordable so I didn't have to do that. Because what you're going to find is like, it's cheap, but it's time and energy and a pain in the butt to do it. And then like every 7th batch, you're like, I don't know, something went wrong. It's not setting up right, or, oh, it's too much spirulina, or this thing's going on. Like whatever that looks like, right? And so, for a long time, wonder shells were that. But let's say since COVID or whatever, they're now, I consider them to be expensive. They're still great. I like using them, but I have a hard time when I'm like, this product used to be half as much. It literally was half the price it is now. And so that's where I see like gaps opening of like, someone can come in here and make a product that would basically do this, and it'll work, it'll work for them. They'll be able to put it out at a cheaper price. Let's see. Oh yeah, I just realized that Can I Pet That Dog thing will play every time I switch back between the website and not. So I haven't fixed that part where every time I open the scene, if you will, it'll play. Let's see. If I've missed your question, which I know I've missed tons of them because I'm just hunting and pecking, ask them and I'll hopefully stumble upon it. And if I do, that's great. If I don't, well, that's the roll of the dice. Let's see here. Same thing with fish imports too. You get a box of fish and it might be most of what you ordered. For us, I would say it's 99+% will be the fish we order. There's always I shouldn't say there's always. When you're ordering wild caught stuff, sometimes there'll be stuff called bycatch, which is, it looks very similar, but it's not quite the same fish. And then when you're buying from farms, most times 99 fish out of 100 will be the fish you want, probably even higher than that ratio actually. And then the one will be like, oh, that's actually one random tetra in my guppy bag, and it's just something like it's caught in a net. And then there's also when they get repackaged at like a transshipper, that can happen too. So not a whole lot of variance when ordering from a farm, I would say. It's mostly whether they have it or don't have it, not so much is it like a mix. So let's see. Any new skullcap merch in the works? Not at the moment. Being quite honest, still financially in a crunch. We're just coming out of summer. We've still got the store expansion, which good news. They're hopefully finishing up HVAC on Monday. I've been talking with this, Friday I was talking with the city of Edmonds on different little regulations I got to get put in, new stuff, right? New, but could be soon, and then we can start earning back some of the money. Like at this point, I think the store expansion, it's been hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars between labor and just stuff. Like I want to say last month, it's like, oh, we spent 15 or 20 grand on it, and it's just it adds up from like, oh yeah, you need a doodad, you need a sign, you need this, you need that, and it's not even the big things like, oh, flooring and the wood and the electrical and this and that. So yeah, where I was going with that is launching new products. We have to be very, very sure they're going to do well, because we can't afford to be like, oh, we brought that product on. It's going to take a few years to sell through that. Like we don't want to tie up that capital for that long if we can help it, especially when there's things that we would like to, deploy on the list sooner. Can I continue to use Soylent Green after its expiration date? In my experience, yes. I have not had a problem using even very old Repashis that were still in powder form, obviously, and making them. So I haven't had that problem. Would I recommend buying a 20 long and making dividers or multiple 10 gallons when I set up a fish room for breeding? 10 gallons all day long. I'm not even like a fan of the 20 longs. Like I realize half the internet loves it. I have tried them probably 20 different times in my career, and every time I'm like, every time I have a 20 long in my possession or at the store being used, I'm like, this is just misery. Like that long, and even like the 33 long, not even a huge fan of it. Also with the Zoom Ed low boy breeders, those super short tanks, not as much of a fan. Now the 10 gallon, you're going, hey, it's like the same, height, but because it's like a little more narrow and it's not as like long, 20-inch, and then somehow it's also very cheap, which the 20 longs, are fairly comparable in price wise. But when you start getting to like how the tops work, like if you've ever had a 20 long top, it's just not as good. Like the longer the tops go, the more unwieldy they are. And so like on a 20-inch top, super easy. You get to 30-inch and it's like, okay, it's a little, it takes more force and you're easy to get a little off kilter and things like that. So, yeah. Yeah, dividers are not ideal. Yeah, it's if you ever need to like take one down and clean it, or I'm trying to think of like what are the reasons? Because when I do it, like maybe I talk myself into like, yeah, efficiency somehow, and then when I'm actually using them, I'm like, this is not as good. Like I would much rather have 10-gallon tanks than 20 long, or than a 20 long. I'm just trying to think of what are the myriad of reasons where I just go, oh, this is why I don't do these. Yeah. Somehow, the 10-gallon tanks I prefer. When you created Easy Green, did anything come close when testing, which would be available in the UK? The closest thing, well, I'd have to look at the concentrations again, but I believe the Dennerley... Is it Dennerley V20? Is that what their fertilizer is? Let me think. Let me see. Dennerley V20. Denner V20? V30. I think it's the V30. I think the Dennerley V30 is the closest thing. I'd have to dig into it a little more. And then Tropica's got an all-in-one that is similar as well. Like all the nutrient densities are slightly different, but they are much closer to an Easy Green than like a Flourish is, right? So if Easy Green's here, like those other all-in-ones are like here, and then Flourish is like my neighbor's house. Like it's so far away, like what would I say? Like Flourish, Seachem Flourish is uh like LaCroix, where it's like, oh yeah, I'm pretty sure they filled that LaCroix container, that can, with water that had a lemon somewhere in the warehouse, and that's how it's got its lemon's flavor. It's like it's so light. And then comparing that to like lemonade. Like, so that would be like, yeah, the Easy Green is lemonade, where the Flourish is like, yeah, it's lemon LaCroix, where you think there might have been a lemon in the building when they packaged it. It's that light. So kind of the same thing. It's just such a, and there's merits to that, right? Like Flourish is a very safe product. You basically can't hurt anything ever because it does so little in terms of the nutrients that it provides. So you can't really like overdose it. So, but at the same time, you watch a lot of people struggling. Like I'm dosing it every week. But it's not doing anything is the problem. So, but from what I could see, the V30 and the Tropica all-in-one, which, yeah, they're like, it's so, the industry is collapsing on itself, and it has been for years. So like half of, like, I think the plant Dennerle part is actually Tropica. But in my career of just working with Dennerle and Tropica, I've watched that go back. They sell it back and forth, and there's lots of infighting and just all of that. And so that's how you get to where like Spectrum Brands owns like Petco, PetSmart, Chewy, All Glass Aquarium, Oceanic, Marineland, Tetra, and like 50 other things. Like it's all just one super corp at this point. And it's because they fall on hard times, and then it's like, oh, they get made an offer, and then they bring that in-house, and the prices go up, and we're watching wholesalers just go through the roof when it comes to, like one of our wholesalers that we don't use a whole lot, but we used to when we were a smaller store. Their minimum orders are now $700, and they just said at the end of this month, there'll now be a 2% credit card processing fee on everything. So otherwise, now you either got to cut them a check or have a transfer going on, and they're just implementing everything to make sure that they make the most money. Meanwhile, their prices are ridiculous. Like there's products that it's cheaper for me to buy it on Amazon than it is to buy through the wholesaler, which is just ridiculous. And Amazon doesn't make me pay 2%, and I don't have to minimum $700 order and all of that, which we are at a point now where our orders are more like $7,000 or, import, like, oh, and a container is $150,000. But when you're Corey at age 31 and you just have your retail store, $700 is a lot of money. Because that doesn't buy you the fish or anything. That's dry goods, right? And so it makes it a lot harder for a store to operate when, they place a $700 order. You walk in next week, oh, I'd love to buy a 33-gallon log, and they go, I can get that, but I got to be able to spend $700. Your tank is $100, so I need to sell enough other stuff. I can probably order it in 2 or 3 weeks, and that's just going to add a burden. It's going to slow everything down and hurt the industry overall, which is unfortunate. But that's the way they're moving. Another one, we met with another store owner, and their minimum with a different company was raised to $2,000. Now you might, sitting at home, you might be like, well, yeah, that's what stores do. Yes, I'm not saying that there shouldn't be minimums and things like that, but the fact that they're going to make it harder on the stores, it's unlikely they will actually make more money. And so I'm interested to see how it plays out. We wholesale, and our minimum is way less, and we don't charge you for the credit card, and we do have the free shipping and all of that. So I'm yeah. Stephen P says, Flourish got a lot of zeros in their analysis. Someone whispered the word fertilizer in another room while they filled the bottles with water. Yeah. Is there a way to mount your filters on the glass? I finally put one in the tanks this week and now I want more. No, we don't have any dedicated like suction cups or anything like that. Ours are all kind of made to sit on the bottom. We've thought about it, but it gets hard, especially when you have the foam, right, is different sizes, and so we'd essentially be making either four products, four different adapters, or have to make something super modular, which adds complexity. And even right now, people email and they don't understand how to put a sponge filter together. We that's why we have dedicated videos of like, here's the air collar, here's the tubing. You will literally have people watch that video and be like, cool, where do I put the airline tubing? You're like, where the nipple is. And they're like, cool, what's the nipple? And then you like send an arrow with a picture pointing to it, and they're like, so I attach the air to that. And you go, yep. And then they go, nothing's coming out. And then you follow up with the email and you go, did you connect it to an air pump? And then they go, I need an air pump. And you go, yep. And then you step 6 steps back and you go, okay, do we have water in the aquarium? What size is the aquarium? What are we looking at? Like, let me help you. You start from thinking, oh yeah, there's having trouble here, to, oh, okay, we need to teach all the way up to here, and this will make sense once we get there. And yeah, so we don't have that capability, and also suction cups are hard to make last a super long time. Our sponge filters in general, I'd be interested to know when we switch our filters in the store. The foam is just now getting where it's like, it still works, but it doesn't have the spring back I like. And that's a sponge filter that gets cleaned every week or two, but it's probably like at least 5 years old, at least. And I could probably still get another 5 years out of them, but I like them to have kind of the springiness to them. If I put a betta fish with oxygen, will it die? I haven't run those tests. There's some people that would say yes, because they're an anabantoid and they breathe from the surface, but then I've seen it where they don't die and they've been shipped with oxygen. So I'm sure there's a portion of how long, what purity of oxygen, temperatures. There's probably a bunch of those things. So, hey Corey, shout out your buddy Chris, all-in-one fertilizer product at Garnelio. It's a great price and competitive fertilizer if you live in Europe. Garnelio makes good products. Yeah, I've been to the Garnelio warehouse and everything, and I actually just forgot about that. And I haven't specifically looked at their fertilizer. That's not true. I looked at it, but I did not analyze it. So yeah, I would look into that too. And you get to support Chris Lukup, who works for Garnelio, which is good. He kind of went away from Dennerley a few years ago, and now he's over there. And yeah, you can also get the Chris and Ollie foods, which I tried to import once, but they took a beating in shipping. How about a piston air pump with a built-in backup power like your regular air pumps? What would that cost? Probably $2,000. Being serious? So part of this is there's always money to be made when you make things easier for people. But then there's also the reality of I literally have that set up. So my linear air piston pump has a battery backup. So think of the battery backups you can buy on Amazon. And that is $1,200 to $1,500 for that battery backup. And so if you have a $1,500 battery and then oh, what's the tax on it? Okay, another $150, you're at $1,650. You throw a $250 air pump on there, you're getting close to $2,000. But my air will run for 5 days. This whole fish room will run for 5 days with air without after I lose power. Now, that being said, that isn't necessarily a viable product for a lot of people. And so you'll get people to say, well, why not use an uninterruptible power source for a computer? Yeah, you could. But then you might go, well, it only lasts a day and a half or 8 hours, or batteries are batteries. And so oftentimes people... I was this way, why can't we just have a thing? And then as you learn more about it, you're well, it comes down to watts. So, 45 watts is what this uses, and a heater uses 100 watts. I could basically, for $1,500, heat one aquarium for 5 days, or run an entire fish room air for 5 days. And so that's why we don't end up with battery powered aquarium heaters and other things, and it's just you need very low power to to run off battery and have it last any amount of time. And so it's a big balance. And our air pumps are the same way. It's like people want them to be stronger, but then they also want them to be quieter, and they also want them to last longer, and they want them to be cheaper, right? And so all of those, unfortunately, can't live in the same world. If you want them to be more powerful, they will just be louder. That's just how that works, right? And if they are more powerful, they will use more power to do it. There could be a technology that gets developed. LED lights were one of those that got developed that way. But as of right now, there's no technology that's going to, wow, now air pumps are twice as strong using half as much electricity. That doesn't exist. And so when people do want it to last longer, it needs to be, you need to manage, well, how much, fuel, which is the power, are you using? I will say we did roll out, probably in all the stores by now, I would think, and for sure on our website, all of our air pumps last 40 hours or more now in the power saver mode. And we always like to downplay our products. In my personal testing, I was getting more like 52 hours. But we don't want to have someone buy one based on it's going to last 52 and only lasted 51. And it's much easier for us to go, hey, you know what? Let's claim 40, which is still up a ton, and they'll be happy when it lasts even longer. And we made that upgrade and charge people no more money for it. So the product just purely gets better. It just cements that, we're that much better on our product. And if someone wants to launch a product like that, they've got the bars a little bit higher now. We are working on, and we're at least a year out, so just know that we are working on a stronger air pump that will not be battery backup. But with that goes, well, how much stronger, how much louder, all of these things. We're still waiting on prototypes, or more prototypes and things like that. So, but when you design a product, you've got a goal, and it's got to be the cheapest, the most powerful, and the quietest, and last the longest, and like feed my fish for me, and spawn fish, and you only get so many things. So when you design a product, you can pick one or two things to really focus on, and that's you got to design for that. And then if you need to do other things, design a different product to do that. How many stores are our products in now? 185 or something like that, roughly. Depends. We have more stores signed up. Some sign up and don't place an order yet, or they're still talking like, what should I order? Are there seasons to fish? It seems like some fish are not always available. Yeah, definitely wild caught fish depends on time of year. Like in Amazon, sometimes it's flooded, sometimes it's not. And then there's also seasons even with farms, right? Time of year, and just it's too hot to ship or too cold to ship. All that kind of stuff does play into it. And then there's also just summer in general is kind of a slump in the industry. And so that's when all the farms and everyone's like, okay, take your vacations, do your things. It'll be a lesser amount. That's the time to do it. What does the save setting do on the air pump? So basically, the power save setting says have the air go for 15 seconds, then turn off for 15 seconds, then turn on for 15 seconds. And so it doubles the amount of time it's going to last. And you can do that same with like my battery backup for my big linear air piston pump. You can unplug it, and maybe you let it go for 8 hours, then you plug it back in for another 8 hours, then you unplug it for 8 hours. Because air is think of it like your aquarium is like a beach ball, right? Or a balloon. Think of it as a balloon. That's better. And you fill up this balloon, you have this much. Well, it's slowly leaking air. Like you've probably bought a balloon before and some at your house, and like, every day it gets a little bit like smaller. It's leaking, right? And that's what happens in there. There's X amount of air in the water, and as it gets used up, there's less and 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 less. You just don't want to run out. Well, imagine if you let that balloon deflate to like this big, and then you pumped it up again. Well, if that process takes a day, you only have to do it every day. Where right now we run our tanks out of fear with oxygen, and so it's just like, oh yeah, we always run it. And so in a position where you need to manage your resources, a lot of times you can do that like, yeah, it's on for an hour, off for an hour. And the problem is I don't have a good thing for you because a pond filled with 50 pounds of tilapia or a pond with 200 pounds of koi is different than a 20 long with 8 neon tetras, right? And so, but in general, if you're watching your fish, for sure, if they're gasping, yep, you got to put oxygen back in. But if they're not gasping, and you usually can back off quite a bit and extend your resources, especially if you knew, like the only threats we really face are power goes out because snow snaps a tree and it kills the power lines. And maybe I'm going, oof, it's been a wicked bad storm. It's going to be like this for days and days and days, maybe 2 weeks. Then I go, I've only got 5 days worth of power on that thing. Okay, maybe I start going to every 8 hours, 8 on, 8 off, or 4 on, 4 off, whatever that's going to look like. Now I have a generator, so then you could go, okay, but it takes 8 hours to recharge that. So you might go, okay, I'm going to run it for 3 days, then I'm going to hook it up to my generator and charge it for 8 hours, then I'll do it again, right? But building a battle plan will help you. And then, yeah, having the power saver mode. So our air pumps, if power goes out, they'll just stay on the normal mode and just do it. And then you can click a button and put them into power saver mode. How do I balance stocking fish that are super popular and you sell a ton of versus rare and oddballs that keep the fish nerds coming in? You don't. You just have to have more aquariums. But I would tell you, staying in business, you sell the things that sell. People that start a fish store, they're going to go, I'm going to carry all the rare stuff. And I go, that's a horrible mistake. Why carry all the things that other stores don't if they're not selling? People assume everybody wants them. Like you can imagine, walk into a store, it's got 3 tanks of zebra pleco, it's got every rare pleco, it's got everything rare you can think of, and everything starts at $50 and up. And then you're going, cool, but don't you have like neon tetras or platies or guppies, or what about green neons? No. Cardinals? No. Rummies? No. Angelfish. We got wilds, $100 a piece. No, not those. What about, you got any corridoras? Yeah. These corridoras are $200 a piece. Like, oof, okay, no albinos, no sturbis, no. Yeah, we got sturbis. We have albino longfin, $29 each. Like, oof. And so the balance, I would say, is maybe designate less than 10%, maybe 5% of your aquarium. So if you have 100 aquariums, 5 of them can be oddball rare stuff. I call it promotion. The rest needs to be what people actually want to buy. Now, some fish can kind of live in both those zones. So like a gold ring danio, it takes a certain person that's going to buy $6 danios, right? And that is kind of an oddball, rarer to get fish, but also price that people could actually buy it, right? When you start getting into $25 African tetras, those are definitely in the odd and rare category and shouldn't be more than 5% of your store. The other thing that I would say, when you have the fish nerds, they typically are very picky. So imagine something like Cyprichromis. Someone was asking earlier if they bred yet, and apparently they have not, which is blowing my mind. But you get someone that wants to buy those Cyprichromis, and they know they're going to be like $20 a fish, and they want to buy at least 8 of them. And you go, hey, I've got, Cyprichromis leptosoma, Karangi Island. And they go, oh, so close. I'm looking for Cyprichromis leptosoma utinta. And you're like, yeah, but they're almost the same. Like, no, they're not. And so now you have this rare fish that's in stock that is so close, but yet won't sell. And that's kind of the problem. You run that with killifish. You run it with so many things. And so I would say 5 to 10% maximum, where if they're truly looking for the odd and the rare, let them ask you for it and prepay and bring it in. But I also believe you want to have the reputation of like, yeah, they do get things I haven't seen before, so it's worth going to look, right? I'm going to go look to see what's new. If you only ever have the basics, they will never need to make that trip. But most times with the oddball and rare stuff, we don't make money. So you have 5% of the stuff where, yeah, that sold like hotcakes, and we brought in the next thing, did not sell. and we had to like clearance them out. We basically sold them for cost or lower. And then you bring in the next thing and like, yeah, they sold okay. We sold 18 of them, but we brought in 40 and we sat on them way too long. Like, oof. And things like that might be wild caught betas. I'm trying to think of other things. Sometimes puffers, rarer puffers. Yeah, just and in general, I say get very few. I'd much rather sell out and go, oh, I would have bought more if you had more, than have 7 of them sitting there that aren't selling. I'm going to open up a store that only my favorite fish and also no one's allowed to shop there. Yeah, I mean that's actually what happens way more often than you would think. There are local stores around me that they literally will not sell the fish. In fact, the store I used to run before I opened my own, there I calculated at one time there was 20% of the store that was not for sale. And it was so annoying trying to sell stuff because people would be like, "Oh, that's amazing! No, that's not for sale. What about no? That's not for sale. What about?" You would get customers that they would pick out all the coolest stuff, and you would just tell them like, "Yeah, none of that's for sale," and then they just wouldn't want to shop anymore. They're defeated. So I actually like our rule is everything's got to be for sale basically, except for like the store mascot. So right now I believe that everything is for sale except for Elmer, which he's doing well, by the way. And so when you're like, but there's guppies in there, like, yeah, we have 2 tanks of guppies right over here. You can buy them, right? And then our 1,500 gallon tank, it's a display that's going to be fun, but we will have fish for sale. Not those exact fish, as in, I'm not going to net them out because it takes 10 hours to catch them. But this tank right here, yeah, we got 500 of them for you. Buy them right there, ready to go. No problem. Let's see, answering some comments real quick. Let's see here. I just had my power go out for 24 hours. Now it's back on. I run a Cascade Penplex 700 filter. Do you think my bacteria would have been fine for the 24 hours? No, probably not. You'll definitely lose some, but in my experience, I find that with a 24-hour outage, just plugging the filter back in and not feeding my fish for like a week, the tank handles it fine. Most times, the majority of your bacteria is actually in your gravel and on your rocks and your coating the glass and all that stuff. And the canister or hang on back or whatever is more of a trash can collecting garbage. Yes, there's bacteria in there for sure. And yes, if it all dies, it makes some ammonia. Yes, but if you had an air pump keeping the majority of your bacteria alive, it just processes that once it kicks back on. And if you're really worried about it, it kicks back on, and then maybe 8 hours later or the next morning, you can do a partial water change. Yeah, and by all means, you can take, the wisdom that people will give, and I always wonder, like, why give wisdom that you won't practice? The wisdom is like, well, yeah, you can clean the filter and do all of that before you put it back in. And I just keep thinking, like, have you been in a power outage? Because, so the power is out for a day. Now the power's back on. And you're telling me, one, I had to unplug them all while the power's out. That's a pain. You've only got so many flashlights and all that. But let's say you did that. Okay, power's back on. And, now you don't have any hot water because all your water heaters are trying to get back up to temperature. So now you're at least a few more hours out, right? And then there's the case of like, and you have 7 tanks, right? And one might be in distress and actually need a water change. And so I don't think it's, yeah, sure, you could clean the filter and all of that, and you could do all these things, but I find that I don't need to do it, and I don't have the resources to do it, because then you're still like in other modes of like, how is the fridge and the freezer looking, and this thing, and what about my pond, and what about this over here, and what about this, and then what about that thing, and then the clock's got to get reset, and this thing's going on. Everyone's always got all these extra things besides just their aquariums, and so I try not to dole out a bunch of extra work that probably doesn't matter when I can help it. Sometimes I don't have the knowledge. I'm like, I'm just doing it. We do a lot of things in the aquarium fear-based. Like, well, I don't think it'll hurt, so I will do that. Doesn't mean it's helping, though. Do know that. 1 ppm nitrite, 6.8 pH, all good, or water change? I myself would water change. I like to keep it at 0.5 or less. As assuming you have water or that you have live plants that will consume that, or you're cycling the aquarium. If that is, like if this aquarium had 1 ppm nitrite, that would start me down a, ooh, what series of events has caused this? Because it should not ever have nitrites. And is that like, ooh, filtration, or is that, something in my water now? Is there a dead fish somewhere I'm not seeing? Like, what is the difference? I would only clean my canister filter after an outage if it smells like sulfur and it's gone anaerobic. Yeah. But so my pushback to that is, when the power comes on, do you walk to all of your tanks, open up the canister filter and smell them? Most people, that answer is no. You might, but most people, no. And once it's basically, most people don't even remember to unplug it. So power comes back on and goes, and like, oh, okay, well, yep, that's where we're at now. And then you're just in a game of, nothing I can do about it now. I need to wait a few hours. I can do a water change. I'll watch. I can test the water and like, oh, that tests fine. So, yeah, I don't believe that enough buildup happens, and that's just my personal take. I haven't witnessed it be a problem for me yet. And this is it when you've got stores like the store I used to run had 300 hang-on backs, and power would go out. Maybe power's out for 2 days. They all kick back on. Not a single one had a problem related to stuff dying off in the filter. So, I don't have thousands and thousands of like chances, but in those experiences, I've never witnessed that be a problem. Now, not having enough heat, that can definitely be a problem. Overfeeding, that can be a problem. There's a lot of things that can go wrong when the power is out and people are trying to fix it. But in my experience, I haven't run into that too much. And then I also try to go, okay, yeah, power was out the last week. Oof. All right, I'm going to give it a day, and then I'm gonna do 20% water change on all these tanks just to make me feel better about it. That's like the next day once you've caught up on all the stuff going around with your house already and work and all that. Then, okay, I'm going to do this out of an error of caution. Can the back pressure of a few clogged air stones damage a diaphragm air pump? And if so, how to prevent it? I've never tested it long enough to break them intentionally, but if you take a pump apart and you hold your finger like at the outlet, you can watch it put more stress on a diaphragm. The magnet might start knocking, or you'll hear it be different. So my hypothesis or my guess is yes, I do think it would do damage long term. But the better question is, how do you prevent it? And mostly that's going to be maintenance. A normal air stone, they get clogged over time. Like the Zis air stones, they can be taken apart and kind of cleaned a little bit. That helps. Our air collars, cleaning them every once in a while with basically like a plunger system with a syringe. But basic maintenance is really where it's at. We do have. Do I have those on my desk? Of course. Oh, right here. Yeah. So we do have like these air stones that'll be coming out. These weighted ones, which I think they arrive in the next 4 to 6 weeks or whatever. But this would help you with that. And so I'll open the package, which is sacrilege, just for this example. But these, I'm convinced, will basically like never have that problem I'm talking about. But if they did, they come apart. So you can take them apart. You can clean them with a toothbrush or something. And you can get between all of the pores and clean them up. You can also change the size of them. So you can make a little, you gotta get your fingernail in there and kind of, when you haven't done this 4 billion times with the tester parts, but you can make a little mini air stone. You can make a monster air stone. You can do all of those things. So let me get this one off now. Hold on, maybe if I put it together, we'll pull off then. Nope. Anyway, you can make them bigger and smaller. You can clean them. Most of everything in an aquarium is How do I make this thing not break? Service it. But we're really bad at servicing things and then knowing, like, I didn't know I was supposed to use silicone grease on the seals of my canister filters and things like that. So yeah, mostly it's servicing and checking. That's the biggest thing of like, oh, it looks like I have less airflow. Like then you probably do. That's either A, the air pump is wearing, or B, the air stone's clogging, or the sponge filter is clogging. What did you end up doing with Spoon, the ghost knife? I ended up killing it. Somewhere in a video there basically shows where I admit, I'm going to call it neglect. It was in a big tank doing fine, then all of a sudden it wasn't doing fine, and then I moved it to another tank, and it was doing okay, and then just didn't. And really what it came down to was I liked the fish, and I wanted to do better, but I was overworked and over-traveled. And that in the video, it signified I need to scale down. That's what I've done. We've scaled down to having like, I think we had 70 some things of water in here to now we're down to 15, and it's much more manageable. And I hold myself accountable for that because that's lame, you know. And it wasn't like, oh, it just got sick and I didn't treat it or anything like that. I still don't know what happened. I don't know. It just was like, wow, he's not doing okay. Like what is going on here? Like you'd watch him eat, you'd watch him do things. And then, but that was just a sign of like, clearly I didn't see the downfall of this fish. And if I had less fish, I would be more likely to see that. That's my hypothesis. And so I scaled down. That's really what it comes down to. So, you know, doing fine for a long time. The next day, not next day, but then he wasn't. Like you get back from a trip, you're like, what's wrong with this guy? I don't know. So I gotta turn the fan on. I plug my fan into one that's on the lights. Oh, this one. Oh, okay, it will turn on. And so it turns off on me every day, even though I want a little more fanage. So yeah, it's Ripta Spoon the ghost knife, which is a bummer. I do love ghost knives, and I keep wanting ghost knife and elephant nose and everything, but I don't have a tank and everything where I'm like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. And like the ghost knife came to me because it was like giant and wasn't selling at the store. And I was like, well, I got a 230 gallon tank for it. And so it was a freebie given to me, which is always different than you sought the fish out. You're keeping it. You had the setup ready for it. You're doing the right things. And yeah, I didn't make them a priority, basically, is what it comes down to. And if you don't make the fish a priority, you can miss stuff, and that's a bummer. My Bacopa caroliniana is rotting. I've had it in a week now, and I have rich substrate, so I have no idea what's happening. Are you putting in fertilizer in the water? If not, that's probably what's happening. I don't know the whole history about your nutrient-rich substrate, but that top layer can get depleted fairly fast within the first 2 months or so. And then stem plants can grab food from the substrate, but oftentimes they want it from the water column instead. How often and how much do you feed your fish? Not often enough and not enough. I'm convinced, like water changes, we are doing simply too many water changes, the average person. Well, yes, too many. And most people are doing it without knowing anything. So like if I watch a Stephen P live stream, he'll talk about dosing fertilizer and water changing every week, and that totally makes sense. But then when I watch the general public, they're like, well, crazy Bettele told me to change water 17 times a day, and other types of things where they're changing water frequently without really understanding why they would. And so when it comes to food, I believe that we have tricked ourselves into underfeeding most fish. Because when people watch me feed, they're like, you're feeding so much. And I'm literally going, I think I should feed these guys like 2 to 3 times as much. And here's my logic. My logic is this. When I feed my tanks, I don't see food in there after about 5 minutes. There's none left. And even though I feed really heavy, after 5 minutes, I don't really have food. And most fish in the wild, when you observe them, they're eating little bits all day long, right? But I'm also seeing that when's the last time we saw breeding like we used to 50 years ago? Like these giant spawns, these big things. And yes, there are people that will overfeed. You'll see it on Facebook groups, and I think that's part of what does it. Is people go like, "What's this fuzzy thing all over the substrate?" And it's like, "Oh my gosh, it's rotting food. You fed way too much, and they're not eating." And usually that's a case where it's like the tank is new, or the fish are sick, or whatever's going on, or you feed a food that they're not going to eat, or it's a low quality, or whatever. But in this tank, I literally could probably feed it 20 times today, and they'll just eat it. And you can make a case for like, well, now you're going to have a lot of poop, and you're going to have to change water and all that. And I could also make the case of like, or dose less easy green. And when you watch breeders and farms and things like that are really trying to grow fish, you're feeding massive amounts of food to accomplish the goal. And I just think most people are underfeeding, myself included. And so right now what I'm doing is I'm feeding twice a day, trying to feed heavier and still not feeding heavy enough. So there's one tank in here that after 5 minutes, there's still food left in it. And it's because I only have 6 guppies. But a tank right next door that has 6 guppies, the same amount of food, they take it down no problem. So then I've been treating them going, I think something might be off with these guys. But I believe that if the goal is, and not everyone's got the same goal, if the goal is maximizing breeding and color and growth, if those are the goals, we almost can't feed enough. If it is simply, I want my plants to look good and I want it to look good when I look in, then you can feed very sparingly and maintaining the weight and things like that, feeding sparingly, yes. Outside in Aquatics just left my first Live Bear Club meeting. It was a lot of fun. Shout out to Chicago Live Bear Association. I saw that pop up in my feed and I was like, I would love a guppy club or a Live Bear club that was thriving locally. And then I thought maybe in a few years, if I can free up the resources where more of my team is handling more things, maybe I could have a Live Bear club. Like if one doesn't exist, try and pitch in and help a ton. That would be my goal. Anyone know if duckweed survives in saltwater aquariums? My guess is no, but I've never tried it, so I couldn't tell you. Can a molly give birth to only one fry and then hold on to the other fry for weeks? I think there's a series of events that could happen, like something super stressful and like one comes out prematurely. But most often, if mollies are going to give birth every 28 to 35 days, basically. And so what is a far more likely scenario is, boom, here's 26 babies, 25 of them get eaten, and then 3 weeks later you have another batch. And then you're like, oh, must have been holding on. It's like, no, they kick them out like every month. So doing things like sponge on the intake filter, lots of cover helps a ton. In some videos, like I did one with Dan of Dan's Fish, I explained like my balloon mollies, I raise up a decent amount of fry. My normal mollies, they're so big and fast, they chase down their fry. Even though it's crazy packed in there, I need to add in like more floating plants and stuff if I'm really going to get any fry out of them. So, and I would say another aspect of feeding a lot, the more you make your fish feel like they just had Thanksgiving dinner, the less likely they're going to chase down the fry to eat them. Now, there still will be bad actors sometimes, but a lot of times they're just hungry. And they're like, I could eat that. And they do. So I feed once every other day, 4 times a week, and I still do significant water changes, but I don't breed anything. Yeah. Yep. There's definitely different methods. Like at the store I used to work at, we would kind of do the same thing, but the goal was not to really get them any bigger or breed them. And in fact, you don't want them bigger if you're trying to keep them in the store. Where like a system at home for that guy, he's feeding them at least twice a day and was water changing every day to grow the African cichlids to sell them at the store. And people ask all the time, like, I'm going to be gone for a week while my fish live. Like, I could literally not feed this tank for a month. All the fish will live. They'll start getting skinny. They'll do all that. And that's kind of the secret of the industry of like, there are wholesalers that just won't feed their fish. They will never get fed. Ever. They will die. Or they'll get sold. And then there are facilities that feed their fish really well. And then all of a sudden, like, wow, these fish look great. The colors are great. They did well in shipping. Yeah. But it costs money. right? And time and energy and all of that. And so I'm not going to tell anyone to do with their aquariums because it depends on what's your goal. But for mine, I usually want them to breed. I want them to look good. And yeah, it's, you know, Stephen P says, I've only fed my puffers 3 times a day and they're mad at me. Yeah. I mean, some of it is just, it's fun to feed. There is that. But, striking the balance that's going to make the difference to you. And sometimes you think about different animals. Like there is a person, your neighbor might have a dog, walks him 6 times a day, does agility training, like climbs a mountain every week. And then you've got, I've got my derpy dogs. They're like, them climbing the mountain is getting on the couch, and then like begging for food and doing all that. And they're both loved a lot, and they're completely different use cases, right? And so I think the same thing can happen in your aquariums also, like just different outcomes is what people are seeking. My guppy colony did well for about 5 months and stopped having any fry. The fry grew up to the adults and are boxy, but not dropping any fry. They have lots of guppy grass and also have breeder boxes. Yeah, my guess is they are still breeding and would drop fry. If you're putting them in breeder box, they're too small. They can actually be so stressful they don't drop and they reabsorb. That's a thing. But it's often, we are bad about plants like we are with fish. And so a lot of times, let's say this tank, I dose Easy Green once a week and it does well for 3 months. Like, yeah, growth is good. Look at that, doing good. Well, after 3 months, all the plants are twice as big. And it starts going like, oh, I'm starting to get algae problems. Like, not as good. Oh, that plant looks like it's dying. But I'm dosing my Easy Green every week. Well, they eat more. So same thing when you've got all these guppies and you're like, well, I started out with 6 and then I got to 12 and they were doing great. And then I was at 18 and they were doing great. And then, what am I seeing back there? Oh, a little plant leaf. You've got 12 and then you've got 18. Now you've got 25 adults. But you're feeding mostly the same amount of food. They're really hungry and voracious to chase down fry at that point. And so kind of tying back into most people aren't feeding enough. And I get my sample size from people walking through the door and they'll, some people will strong arm you, like literally show me how much food. And you're like, all right, this baby fish gets 3 pellets. And then you'll talk to them a year later, like, well, you told me 3 pellets. I'm like, that fish is a foot long now. Like, what are you doing? Like, we said 3 pellets. Like, yeah, but you gotta adapt with the size of the fish and how many fish and those types of things. And we will also limit with cost, right? So maybe you're feeding frozen food and you're like, yeah, this tank gets 2 cubes. Well, if it has 3 times so many fish, it shouldn't just get 2 cubes, right? You need to feed more. More. Can I get a rough ETA when Aquarium Co-op hoodies and extra large will be back in stock? Let me take a look. I'll see if I can give you any actual ETA. Which I won't, but I can at least tell you, like, if every other size has 100 of them in stock, like, it's going to be a long time. Where if all of them are pretty low, it's like, oh, we could do with re-upping on that, and now it's towards the season. XXL, 2XL. I see. Well, we got 5 of them in stock at the retail store. Maybe we'll be able to get, maybe we'll do a thing where we look at inventory and maybe ship a couple over to warehouse. But I can't guarantee that because our numbers look okay. As in, it's all we need all the bigger sizes. So maybe we'll be able to put an order together for 2X, 3X, and 4X. This XL and lower are fine stock. This is the bigger ones. So maybe we'll do that. I know why that happened. We don't make any money on the hoodie. I say that about a lot of these merch products, but like a 4XL hoodie, we're just paying a grip for it. And especially because we're printing both sides, like that's a nightmare. Like I like it. I only like to sell stuff that I would actually use and I would actually wear, and that typically becomes expensive instead of just going, well, you could do it the cheaper way. Like, yeah, but I wouldn't wear that. So Killer Kitty with 5 gifted memberships. Thank you. Yeah, I almost made this a live stream for members only, but I was like, well, I want to get the word out if I'm going to start doing that. So if you like this and you might want to see it on some other weekends, you missed the talk yesterday, which was breeding catfish with Beckatine. But yeah, I'm aiming to do some more of this. Looking to, I wouldn't say grow memberships. I mean, I'm always a business can't be truthful and be like, oh, I'm not looking to grow. Like, obviously, we're always looking to be more successful and do better at what we do. But I am trying to think of like, yeah, I want to interact with the member group some more and all of that. And yeah, so thank you much. And the people that got free ones, make sure you watch as many videos as you can. Sync up your account, save 5% at our online store or physical store or RPP stores, retail partner stores that also honor the discount. Can I do that from here? Let me see if I can do that from here. I liked it when I kind of matched it, and then let's see here. How do I gotta find. They make it so hard to find your own stuff on YouTube. Let's see if I can. Can I match? Can I match? Let's see here. I wish they need to make buttons on the back end that just let me match. Like, let me click a button that says, hey, I'll match that. So let's try that. 5 memberships. Maybe I'll match as many memberships other people do today. Let's see if it'll let me. Trying it. Did it work? There we go. Yeah, I'll match them today. So we'll get a bunch of new members and find something fun to do. What's the code for Dan's Fish? I believe it's still active. It's Aquarium Coop, all one word. We don't get a cut anymore. I decided. So part of it is people were like, you're only saying that because you get paid. And it was true that I was getting paid, but that's not why I was saying it. So I actually stopped all. Is that true? Let me make sure. I stopped all affiliate deals with everybody. The only one we technically still have is Amazon, but I don't know that we put an Amazon link out in like the last 5 years. But still, technically, that account's active. So if you find a super old video and it links to an Amazon thing, and you buy something, we'll get 2.5 pennies. But yeah, what was I gonna say? Oh, that I do like what Dan's doing. I got to see a whole presentation about his building and all of that, and that was cool. And so now when people are saying you only say that because you get paid, I don't get paid. His fish are expensive, and in some of the videos he made, I think that'll help explain why. I'm at a point now where if I have an aquarium that I want to breed a fish, and let's say it's some guppies, and they come in healthy, and I can start that process from day one, and that saves me 3 months of quarantine and heartache, it's worth spending $20 more for that trio. Whereas if I can find it $20 cheaper, but they come in, like I literally ordered some teacup platies, and they came in this big. So they're another 4 or 5 months before breeding age at this point, or size. It'll really produce any fry that's worth it. And so I think it's worth it for that. And I know, he built a lab to have people, or to have the person on staff treat the illnesses and do these things. And I want to support that. And two, I get the better outcome of a better fish, but also I'm supporting him in the way that makes fish better. So I like that too. So yeah, that's where I'm at with that. Hey Corey, I don't know if you saw my question earlier, which I didn't. Oops. I wanted to ask if you decided not to go with a pump on your water conditioner like the Fritz Complete. Also, just got some zebra loaches from Dan and used the code. Yeah, so that code saved you money. Did not get us any money. That's okay, though. We decided to go without the pump head because, one, they cost us money. So there's full disclosure. Cost us money, kind of a pain in the butt. They ride broken sometimes in shipping. And then we pay $12 to ship you a new one. Brutal, right? But two, I am loving the caps. So 1 pump per 10 gallons works amazing when you have few tanks. The more tanks you have, the more I believe having a dosing cap makes more sense. And then what I love, and I used it yesterday, in fact, I love being able to measure other things. So just so happens that this cap also fits a bottle of ICX. So my hope is that things like that, where I'm on my second bottle of the chlorinator, let me get rid of recycle the bottle, I'll save the cap, and that goes on ICX. And now this goes on this other product that we don't make. And so now you've got these dosing caps everywhere that make your life easy, right? And so another thing, I we haven't brought in enough yet, but I'm really loving using praziquantel, which is Prazi Pro from Akari. I'm liking adding that to my. I'm gonna follow up like a month later and just hit him with a Prazi Pro because I like the fact that it stays in the water for a week. And the more research I'm doing about some of these diseases and some of the stuff that Dan is logging with all the fish he's bringing in, it makes more sense to be even more, I don't want to say aggressive, but more aware of kind of the parasites that are common on the fish that we're playing with. Yeah, there's stuff on Dan's fish that I'll never buy. Like there's a trio of swordtails or a pair for like $700. That ain't me. You get the right molly or the right other thing though, and I might have to tell my wife like for my birthday this is what I want. And she'll just be like, "You're crazy," and I'll be like, "Yep." But I also know that I can breed stuff, sell at the store. There's people that will fly in to buy our stuff, and so I've actually got three different things coming in from Indonesia that are going through a transshipper and all of that. That are fish that they're all live bears that I want to breed, and my goal is actually more to my goal is more to get them out in the hobby because I think they're just really cool fish than it is to make a ton of money. So if I can recoup the grand I'm going to spend in selling stuff off, then I can do it again, right? Vienna Guppies was kind of the test pilot for that. Why don't I recommend Aquahuna anymore? We do. I just don't go out of my way to do it because they, in my opinion, stabbed us in the back, started selling plants online. And so the goal was always like, yeah, we can help you sell lots of fish. And then they're like, yeah, but plants, we can do that too. And it's like, yes, but, and they, to be the timeline of events, they asked us that they're like, okay, we don't need your help selling fish anymore. We'd like to end this relationship. We set a deadline. That happened. And then after that deadline happened, then they brought in all the plants. It's like, I see what's going on here. And so, like, we still, truth be told, we still buy fish from them and even some plants from them for our retail store. But, you know, they are not in the quality that we would ship out, if that makes sense. So, and I haven't tested their tested their plant shipping a lot because we just get it delivered by hand to the store. But yeah, no, I would still recommend them. They haven't changed anything where it makes their fish worse or their plants worse or their company worse. Just doesn't make sense for us to go out of our way to promote them. So that's the truthful answer. Let's see here. Which, by the way, is like the MO of most companies. If you look back at companies we don't work with anymore, it'll be like, we always start with like, cool, don't launch into our markets and we will help you grow your market. And we help people grow their market and then they launch into our market. And so we just don't do that anymore. We're just like, nah, not going to do it. Co-op brine shrimp changed the game for me. Thanks again. I like to hear it. Yeah, by the way, I asked Dan, I'm like, are people actually buying $300 trios of swords and everything? And he's like, yep. And he showed me. I was like, okay. And I know that there are fish out there that I would pay stupid money for because I am. And so I get it. And I do like the fact that I like to shop his site because I can find stuff I don't find all the time. So there is that bonus there for sure. So even though now it's for me, hey, that's cool. You know, that's fine. Let's see here. Steenfot doesn't talk highly of Aquahuna. Yeah, well, I'm not trying to throw anyone under the bus, but you also have to remember, like, who's getting paid where. Doesn't get paid by Aquahuna. We don't either at this point. But if I'm being true, we order shrimp and some fish and stuff like that from them basically every week still. I've been using them as a wholesaler for the last 16 years. And so there's a lot of history there. It just doesn't make sense for us to be affiliated with them online anymore. So that's the way business go. Do I prefer an online shop in Germany so I can buy some fish online? The only online seller that I've seen in person is Garnelio. and I believe them to be doing. They got great shrimp prices. I don't think they stock a whole bunch of fish. Maybe they do now. But seeing their facility, they felt like a small company like us would be trying very hard. So that's where I would if I was in Europe, I would order from Garnelio only because I've been there and I see and I know that like they've got Chris Lukup overseeing all of the inverts and that kind of stuff. That being said, there could be 10 other wholesalers or retailers are infinitely better. I just don't know them because I haven't been there. I don't know. It's not my market. So you never know. You might stumble upon one tomorrow. I tend to lean into the places that I know and I've been to. So like if you were asking me saltwater like a year ago, I'd be like, you should buy from Danny's Aquariums. He's a YouTuber. I've hung out with the guy several times. I've known him since he was like 14. He's now like 22 or something. And I know on the back end, I've helped him launch the website when he was doing it. And you know, here's how you should set policies and you got to make it right. And I've seen his trials and tribulations. And I know in general, he's out there to do the right thing. And if I know that, I'm more likely to support that. Because if I just don't know the person, then how would I know? So, and I saw another 5 gifted memberships from Bob Mennel, which I will match that as well. So thank you, Bob. Add some people to the memberships. Here we go. I gotta keep my eye on time because don't I? Yeah, like another hour or so. I should probably take a break for like 10 minutes and then run the Guppy live stream, which I'm stoked about. I love me some guppies. $1 from Coexisted. Well, thanks. Let's see here. I trolled you and started you early. Yeah. I don't know. It's 2 different shows. Like I'm going to stop the stream and I'll go to the other one. But it's weird. Like even though I'm the CEO of a big company, a big company. Hold on. How big is this hat? This hat's getting too big. It's not what I meant to say. Even though I'm the CEO of the company and I've got a lot of responsibilities and things, I still love just to be a fish nerd, hanging out and chatting. And so I will end up missing that, especially when times are tough, whether it's like sales-wise or HR-wise or product-wise. There's always like these big stressors. And sometimes I just go like, I just want to talk fish. Like I just want to see like, I literally love watching these rosy barbs. And to me, it's like this, it's the dumbest fish. Like if I had a shirt that said rosy barbs are dope, people would be like, what is with this guy? But I literally can stare and watch these longfin rosy barbs going, look at them, they're eating the algae. I don't know, they're just magical. And then I start thinking about how lucky we are as a human to keep a box of water with live animals and get to watch them breed and do these things and create an environment, like all of that. So I love it. And that's honestly, that's the passion that I like to hopefully like unload on other people, but too often I have to wear a business hat. And so this is kind of the nerd time. The nerd time. Closer and closer to 3 years, and thank you for answering my question, Corey. Also, could I add a pump myself? And if so, would it be 1 pump per 10 gallon? When it comes to dosing pumps, like for instance on this one, ours are 1 milliliter per 10 gallons. And that's the dosage you want, but not all pumps would be that. Like some might be like, oh, that's a 5 milliliter. So here's a great example. Like this is one reason specifically why we're getting rid of pump heads. Customer service will be like, it doesn't work. Like the customer like, this doesn't work. And you're like, what? You gotta pull the thing so it can't do that in shipping. And so it's just stuff like that. And then there's some that are push down and turn. Like this one also has a push down and turn. You can lock it that way. And so we've tried about every different type, but at scale, at 15,000 customers like a month, you just have X amount of people. There's like, oh, it's not a problem when you're like in a store because you're just like, oh yeah, here, let me do it for you. Like, yeah, there it works. Awesome, right? It's when it's, through email and not everyone's tech savvy on that. So Yeah, it's an extra live stream. The normal 6 Eastern live stream will happen about guppies and everything because I just wanted to spend more time, if you could believe it. Would 3 half beaks and a 20 long be good, or are they too territorial? If you have unlimited like floating plants, it can work, but I nah, it'll work. I was gonna say, like, you do want a bigger tank, but you'd have to go up to like a 40 breeder or a 55, and even then, you still need an insane amount of floating plants for it to really work well. Good morning from New Zealand. I'm able to catch it live today, which is awesome. Needing to place another order to re-up on the sponge filter and the easy flow. Awesome. Yeah, there are people that are out of the country and they order and use a freight forwarder. That's also how you would get your coins and stuff. That can be done, which someday we'll get a good system working for all that. But just let you know, and it is more costly. So don't be hitting us up going, it costs money. Like everything in the world costs money. I'm sorry. You know, if I could hit a button and it would teleport to your country, I'd be doing it. Trust me. Would I recommend a guppy tank with only males if you don't want 1,000 fish? Yeah. In my opinion, if you don't want 1,000 fish, guppies aren't the right fish for you because they only live like a couple of years. You're better off going tetras and stuff. You'll get a long time out of them, in my opinion. I absolutely love my 3-year coin. The program brings me so much joy. Well, I'm glad. I just like that we're building I don't know. There's a lot of YouTubers out there. We'll be used again by YouTube because our community is so strong. You guys are using when we're going to use for memberships again, so that's cool. And then we're also getting used in the community, the new community tab page thing where you guys post pictures and we can look at them and leave comments and all of that. I'm loving watching that. And our community that we've been able to build is so strong compared to not just even other fish communities, but just throughout YouTube. It is not common. I mean, we've got 500 people in this chat, right? And the chat is moderated and it's not swearing and political and terrible. When you go to a lot of other spaces on the internet, you're just like, oh, that's not a community. It's offensive to my everything, right? And not even like whether you agree or don't agree, but just like a spamming chat of just like, you know, here we can actually have conversations. And I like to see there's conversations going on in the background. It's not just Corey answered the question. Like a lot of the relationships are that. It's the presenter and the audience. Here, I've worked very hard over the years to try and make it so, yes, there is that, but there's also you guys. There are lots of people in this chat that know tons about fish and plants and things like that. And so like Stephen Peefritz, he runs live streams on plants. He's got his own channel. It's only a few thousand subscribers, but he's got his own community over there. But in like the Facebook group, he's one of the experts. He's tagged as an expert because he helps people. He's good with water chemistry and stuff like that. And so we try to go out of our way. I thought it was cool to see the presenter yesterday for the club has been a member for over 2 years. So they, after giving the presentation, joined and have watched the presentations and been active. And so the fact that we're pulling in more industry professionals, and even in here you see that store owners will be asking questions. Like this community and this big group is not seen almost anywhere that I've seen. I'm sure it exists, but we, really do have something special here. And so I'm always trying to work on it and just get it better and better and better, it's a hard thing because it's such a big, like, how do you navigate this giant ship that moves and turns real slow? But yeah, it's been fun. I'm voting for the candidate with the most fish. Let's see. Are you open another retail store in the United States? What day is your expansion going to open? Don't have a hard date yet. My hope, what's today? My hope is here's my hope. If everything was to go great, I'm hoping we can open the expansion sometime in October and we'll still be stocking it. Like the goal is to get it to like 80% stocked with fish, hopefully. let some people kind of going in and out and using it and going, okay, are there any little tweaks do we have to make? Like, oh, the flow's not right here as far as humans walking through the store. Oh, we need another checkout. Ooh, this thing is the thing, right? And then sometime probably in November, do like a grand opening event. I've got some ideas, like, okay, maybe we have Zenzo and Dean and maybe some other people there with me. Maybe we do some auctions. I think that I've always wanted to do auctions, so maybe we'll pilot that of where it's like this group of fish, like if you were to buy it yesterday was $80. We're starting it at $1. And just letting people that show up bid on that kind of stuff and just have it be a fun thing. And so my other goal with that is to bring stuff from my fish room and Dean's fish room, stuff that maybe hasn't been in the store or wouldn't be in the store, and go, hey, you want a breeding pair of this? Like, it's out of my fish room, bid on it. It'll be fun. So we'll see how all that kind of goes and if that's a fun thing and if I can get, I have no idea. Like, are the regulations run an auction or you can just run an auction? I don't know. We'll see. We'll figure it all out. That'll be fun. But we can't really do anything until we get occupancy and all of that. And then also there's like the threshold of like, yep, there's occupancy. And then there's also like, is everything running great before we bring 1,000 people here? Right? Like, oh, over this weekend there's going to be 1,000 people. Let's make sure, oops, internet cut out. Oops, this thing goes down. Oh, we needed 2 more checkout stations. Oops, we need. And so making sure all that is dialed in and perfect before we, and also giving a heads up to like the taco truck, people going to want to eat. Yeah, Nico, you can say hi at a meeting. I was at the GSAS. I'm not sure. I think I have a commitment with Katie for this next meeting, so I don't know that it was on the schedule, and then my wife told me last night, like, I don't think we can go to that one, and I won't say why because I don't know if it's too much information, but yeah, too shy to say hi. I should have that, like, I'm a fish nerd, too shy to say hi. Like, because I think I run into that a lot at conventions and stuff where you almost need that shirt that says, I love Planet Tanks. It's at least like a banner of like, hey, you're my people. But then also it almost needs like the tagline of too shy to say hi, because a lot of us fish people are introverts, which I am also, which you wouldn't know it because it's my job to be in front of thousands of people and get up on stage and do these things, which was mortifying and still is kind of mortifying from time to time. The more I know a subject, the easier it is. The more it's like, oh, I'm talking out of my depth, the harder it gets. But yeah. Need a New Zealand retail partner? Yep. We need lots of things. We need it all. Yeah, I'd buy that shirt. Yeah, I know what it's like to show up to a big club meeting or a convention and you're the new person. And it is welcoming, but it's so like, I don't know, like everyone seems like they're involved in their own conversation. Yeah, I'm gonna sit over here. And so that's why, Dean and I typically will seek you out. Like the more you look like you don't have anyone to talk to, because I have been that person and I don't like being that person, because the only reason I don't like being it is because once you discover what the alternative is, it's so amazing. Like, or all of a sudden, you start talking, I'm like, wait, you have a fish room dedicated to the stuff I love too? And you live 14 minutes away and we could be doing like lunch dates and trading fish? This is the coolest thing I've ever discovered. When you know that could be the alternative, that's where you know what you're missing out on. So put a naturally shy fish on the shirt. Yeah, I'm trying to think what would be recognizable and like people would know. Like the ultimate shy fish, in my opinion, is Daniel Erythromicron. I can have 50 of those in a tank in a 10-gallon, and people still be like, "You have any of these?" It says that the tag's on the tank. Like, yeah, they're there. You got to get in there and they like show for half a second. I'm like, yeah, that's what they do at your house too. They really got to get settled into a tank, which is brutal. Fishroom Fever says, we did soft opens prior to grand openings when I was at a Fortune 200 retail company. Great way to work out the kinks. Yeah, definitely Because there's a lot of things that have to go on. Like once the expansion opens, right? There's a door that has to open, and there's a pipe that goes right in front of that door that carries drain water. So when that door opens, we cut that pipe, and then all of a sudden 21 tanks no longer can get water changes, need to be broken down. So door opens, break that down, build a whole new super cool dry goods section for rocks and wood and everything right there. And there's stuff we want to do in the main store too. So we'll put that on a timeline. We want to put the new flooring in. We kind of want to replace tanks. There's all these things we want to do, and it's just depending on when and when makes sense and when are builders ready and that kind of stuff. So I have to turn on the talk to people mode sometimes. Yeah. Fellow introvert who learned to get out there for work purposes, I totally get that. Yeah, I mean, if I didn't have to go to work, I'd be like, how about I just sit in my fish room and don't come out for 12 hours? And then, my wife's like, I live here too. Like, oh yeah, I forgot. I was just in the fish room. Yeah. So, and the thing with the talks you go to, by the time you've driven there, you've already committed to like, you're open enough to like maybe talk to another nerd. So then if you just have the right shirt, it'll be the barrier. It'll break down that barrier is what I was trying to say. Come on, you guys. Do shrimp eat fish? Yes, they will. Depending on, definitely prawns will. Like they've got the big pinchers, like not crayfish, but like the long arm shrimp will catch baby and smaller or frail fish and eat them. And then anything that dies, usually a shrimp will eat as well. And this is just in freshwater. Saltwater, probably even more. Let's see here. I cleaned my free filter, internal filters, did a water change. Water went cloudy, another water change, dosed with Easy Green, and now I have green water with 0 nitrite and 20 part per million nitrate. What do I do? My advice is buy a UV sterilizer on Amazon and just solve your problem. Otherwise, black out the tank for a week. Hope that works. Try and do way too many water changes that the internet will tell you to do, and then when that doesn't work in a week, you'll try blacking it out for a week, and if that doesn't work, then you're going to buy a UV sterilizer. Or you go spend your $50 on Amazon today, you fix it in 2 days, and then if it ever comes back, you have the answer, especially if you have multiple tanks. So I'm 17 years old and in high school, a senior, and only interested in aquatic science. I want my whole career to be about aquatic life. What should I do? Well, in my opinion, build yourself a life that won't be financially, what do I want to say? Financially hard? No. Like, fish careers in general don't make a ton of money on average. Just on average. Not that it doesn't happen, but they're the outlier. And then choose what you want to do. Are you just going to go, and I say just, are you just going to go and become like a marine biologist? Plenty of that. Not a lot of places to actually put it to use, though. It can be hard to find work in that field. You can get a degree in ornamental fish in Portland, Oregon, which is like I think the only one maybe in the United States that has a degree for ornamental fish, which that might help you a little more, depending on where you're trying to go. Camping a spot at like a zoo is pretty hard, or an aquarium. I think what you would see. So maybe my advice would be this: if I was trying to give advice to a nephew or something, I would say sign up for the membership program, which that sounds like a sales pitch, but get access to our membership program so that you can see all the people that have given a talk about their area of expertise. They usually will say what they do for work. Are you a scientist? Are you a vet? Or, oh, by day I sell cars, but by night I fly and research this fish throughout the year. And I think that'll give you a lot of context to what are some viable career paths. And then it's not only work in the field. It could be you work somewhere else to generate money, but then you do your life's work and stay connected with your passion, potentially. Um, and so I think you could get a lot of benefit out of that by just going, okay, by seeing what everybody else is doing, maybe I'm interested in this or that now. And so it's worth one $5 investment if you spend every day watching an episode or two, and you'll get through that in the month. For $5, trying to help plan out how you're going to spend the rest of your life is the best return you could get, I think. Let's see here. Saw this in chat. How to treat eptiles? Where'd that go? It moved. Hold on. Oh my god. Oh yeah. I've used ICX and antibiotic in the food. My fish want help. I'm supportive of your store and the only purchase from you. Please help. Let me Google that because I think that's maybe a misspelled parasite. Yeah, that's not it. Epistylus. Epistylus? I can never pronounce that parasite. Epistylus. Basically, I always call it the thing that looks like ick, but it's not. Epistylus. Um, my best advice for treating it is actually salt, aquarium salt. And I'm gonna be making I want to make a program for other RPP stores, my store, and YouTube about meds and salt and that kind of stuff. But I'm convinced that if you could only have one thing to treat fish, I would choose salt. If I couldn't have access to anything else, like if for some reason, if you're just like, okay, you got to choose between Maricin, Paracleanse, ICX, and 10 other meds and salt, but you can only ever have one, I would choose salt every time because salt will treat parasites, fungal infections, and bacterial infections all on the outside. It's basically the miracle drug on the outside. Unfortunately, it will also kill plants and sometimes snails. So you need to use it in certain ways, but yeah, I think it's one of the most powerful things. And so in general, if you don't know how to treat something on a fish, your best possible outcome without more information is salt. And so what I'm trying to say there is not like only ever use salt and never do extra research, but let's say for whatever reason you were in a situation where you couldn't get outside knowledge. Power's out, you don't have internet, and the fish are sick, salt would be the go-to. Now, if you can say, okay, well, I've got a few hours, I'm going to ask Facebook groups and forums and this and that, and you can identify it, that's clearly better. Clearly better. But if you didn't have that, or no one can identify it, the most likely way to solve it would be salt. Your odds are the best. Now, not every fish is that way. Not every tank can have salt. But so Epistylus, when I see that, the best solution I find is salt. Now, whenever using any medication, I highly recommend looking at all the water. What are the parameters? How hot is it? All that kind of stuff, right? And then making sure that's all dialed in. Maybe do a little bit extra water change. Just make sure water's great because it's really hard to heal a fish when they're in stress from water parameters. And they could be too hot, too cold, any of that. And then I would use salt. Do salt dips help or work? Some people swear by them. I don't use them. And most of the time, I'm treating lots of fish. So, for instance, salt dipping 500 cardinal tetras is not the easiest move. Salt dipping one rosy barb, sure. One goldfish, sure. But in general, I like treating the tank. That's always been my preferred method, and I think it's mostly a preference, and I have the most experience doing that. So if you had no experience, it's equally as dangerous for you whether you treat the whole tank or you do the dip. But yeah, it's I don't have the knowledge base to go, oh, these fish handle this concentration at this amount of time, and that's what you need to be successful at dipping all the time, in my opinion. Ooh, the like spike. Who's getting the like spike going? Eric Wyrock. What that means is hit the like button. So I can tell you guys this. When you interact with the channel in any way, a like, watching more, shares have a huge indicator on YouTube actually. So if you're ever wondering like why don't they show up more in my feed, share one of their videos to like your Facebook or something, and that instantly like puts you back at the top. Like that is such a rare action to take that YouTube values it very highly. That share, same with like clipping or making a clip of it, any of those things, and that gets you more likely to get the free memberships. It gets you more likely to build trust with YouTube to make your account better to use, like some of the community features and that kind of stuff. So yeah, like spike helps us, helps spread the word, but also it helps your account also. Which so it's kind of a thing. Even I'm guilty. I'll watch live streamers or I'll watch other fish people all the time, and they'll be like, "Yeah, how about you hit the like button?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, I've spent 40 minutes watching this. Yeah, here's a like." And it's just because I'm working on doing something, and half you guys are probably and gals are probably water changing, or maybe you're on the TV or whatever, and it's like, yeah, well, okay, you forget to do it, and yeah, it just helps. Do we have videos on how much salt to use? Oh yeah, we've got videos, we've got articles, we've got descriptions on the website. Yep, and yep, we do. That's right. I forgot we had the like spike emoji. What is the best way to add new fish and shrimp to a tank running CO2 with no current inhabitants? My official stance of what I do, I drop them in. I literally open the bag and pour them right in. Which there's so many people who be like, but you're going to introduce stuff. Like, yep, if that water's bringing something in, the fish or the shrimp or whatever are bringing something in also. And I find that a lot of people have just as many problems trying to acclimate, especially if you buy fish through the mail. You'll get ammonia spikes and all that. So we've been practicing it for over 15 years. At most, cut the bag open, pour it into a net over a bucket, put the fish straight in. At the easiest, like if Dean brought me fish over, open the bag, pour them in. I still use meds on everything, but in terms of acclimating, and I've done lots of A/B testing at the store because obviously, like our goal is least amount of dead fish makes us the most money. I've never observed a difference between acclimating fish, shrimp, anything like that, and that whether it's there's $1,000 in discus or cardinal tetras or this catfish or that shrimp or that snail or that thing or that thing. A/B testing all of it, we haven't seen any difference. There's always variance, like, oh, this one lost one, that one didn't. But then you test it again 2 weeks later, you're like, oh, that one lost one, this one didn't. And, test 2 weeks later, no one lost them. Okay, well, we're not seeing any differences. Now, I'm sure there's some fish out there, and there's some extreme out there that there could be, but there's also extremes on the other end of, by trying to acclimate with all the ammonia, they're actually getting ammonia burn, and they die over the course of a week because we tried to drip acclimate instead of just kind of dropping them in, plop and drop. Corey should come to the clash and just nerd out, hang out with some true fish nerds. I almost did, to be fair. I do that all the time. I look it up and I go, ooh, when is that happening? And then October 4th to the 6th, and then I look at my calendar and I'll go, oh, I have stuff. Like I know that I have people flying in during that time, so I can't go. Like in the company, we're doing meetings, and so, like, yes, could I cancel all that and then go to the show? Like, yep. But part of it is that last minute, ooh, am I going to be free? And most times I'm just not. So I actually did consider it though. When I considered it was when I think it was Jenna asked for more sponsors and everything. Everybody stepped up. We got everything sponsored, but I was like, should I go? And I was like, oh, I can't. Look at the calendar. Dang it. So can't. Let's see here. We'll see you later, Rodney. You gotta go. I understand. Not everybody can hang out in a live stream for up to 5 hours between this one and the next one. Where can we get that amazing planner shirt you're rocking? Oh, this one? at the Aquarium Co-op. I think I can pin it to the screen. Can I do that? Let me see. Let me see. Let's see. We're gonna pin. There you go. The small size sold out, so we'll have to get some more of those. But yeah, maybe next year at the Keystone Clash. Sure, maybe. Everyone asks me that about every show, and I always go, yeah, maybe. There's so many shows. Like, what about you going to Cataclysm? What about the ALA? What about I was say Aquatic Experience doesn't happen anymore. What about Aquashellas? What about? I'm like, yeah, maybe. It's basically the way my life works is once there's now time, free time, it's like, ooh, I probably should include my wife. Does my wife want to go to Keystone Clash? No. So until I can get to a point where we get the balance back, which the balance hasn't been here for almost 2 years between expansion and moving the warehouse. Once there's enough time to be like, hey, we did our thing as a family unit. Now I have time to go do things for business and like pleasure. And that would be it's like an ALA convention. That'd be the Keystone Clash. Those types of things fit in that zone. So we got to get to that point. None are as cool as the Clash. I can't battle that. I can tell you I'm a legendary member of the AGA and I've never been. Like there's a lot of places I want to go. I mean, why wouldn't I want to go hang out with people? I do. I also have this thing called work I have to do. And even though the work is fish related, like it's still work, honestly. As in still have schedules, still got teams of people that rely on me too. Whether honestly a lot of it is it might even be easier to make fish events if I didn't work for an aquatic company. Because then I'd be like, oh, I'm going to set this time aside. Clash getting big, though. It's definitely worth your time. Yeah, there's plenty. I'm not, like, Dean was asking if I'm going to, was it Fishtoberfest? It's like next weekend. Again, I have people flying in. I think the next 3 weekends in a row, I have people flying in. And then this last weekend, I wasn't live because Dan flew in. So, it happens quite often. That I got stuff I got to do. And the 2 weekends before that was, I didn't do anything all summer. So we had a barbecue with my friends and then we had a barbecue with my family. And then it's like 5 weeks straight of all the weekends are eaten up by people flying in and having to do work things. So, but yeah, no, I would love to go to a bunch of these. Yeah. Someone asked if I'm going to Fishtoberfest. Nope, I'm not. Nope, unfortunately. Yeah. Let's see here. Big shout out to Candy and the team. Knowledge and support. Give Corey. Wait. Support which you give Corey, which continues to spread enthusiasm. Yeah, it takes. What do they say? It takes the village. There are a lot of people behind the scenes that you may never meet because they don't want to be met or something like that. That just help things get done in the co-op. I mean, there's even people that don't work for us that are helping. Like Dean doesn't work for us. I mean, kind of. Does some things. He does get paid for some things every once in a while. But there's a lot of just people out there that they see the greater picture and project and they're like, yeah, let's help that. And that's good to see. So I know I'm thankful for it. Have I been to Nick's Crispy Tacos in San Francisco? No, I have not, but clearly I need to. That's an obvious thing. The fact that they've set the standard with crispy tacos. I already know they're on the right track to success. I don't know why I'm knocking on wood, but I'll do it. Replacing my Fluval P25 heaters every 6 to 12 months. You have had the experience of them not being very reliable. Have I had the experience of them not being very reliable? Do you have another heater you would recommend for small tanks? I don't think we've seen that experience in our data of those heaters having that much trouble. I wonder if they have a bad print run or with almost all heaters, flow is very important. So getting better flow helps almost every heater. Yeah. And as far as heater recommendation, I haven't even used it yet, but I'm going to test it before I'm kind of telling about it now, so that doesn't really help. But before we would sell it, if we would sell it, This heater looks very promising. It's also stupid expensive, but the technology they're using looks to be exactly what everyone says they want until they go, wait, that's a $140 100 watt heater. Like, yeah, it's going to be super expensive, but the reliability on this is looking pretty good. Just from, I do lots and lots of research. I need to set it up, and then it's, in 2 years or a year or whatever, I'll be able to kind of advise you. But even the box itself is impressive, and it's got the controllers, and it doesn't use suction cups, it uses magnets, so that's already, like, that costs money, but I already like that way better. Like, it's got a lot going on for it. Reef people trust them, and I think the sooner we can normalize a $150 heater that might actually last 10, 20 years, the better heaters for our hobby will be. But it's going to be some time, because people are still buying $14 heaters on Amazon. So getting everybody going, yeah, that's where you should invest some money, is pretty important. Any plans on opening another store? Not at the moment. Randy would love it if I opened one in Kentucky, but no, at the moment, the only battle plan is buy all of our stuff, recoup money, get back to having more time in the fish room and getting, a day off every week. And then when all of that is dialed in, it's been a year or two, then we could go like, do we want to add a challenge back to the business and add another location? Then I could be like, I'm willing to hear the idea. But until that happens, we are not adding any more complexity to the business we've got going right now. It is already, whew. That's right. Are you guys buying all of our stuff? So many of you wait till the live stream's over, then you click that buy button. I always find it weird. It's like an avalanche. Maybe you're afraid that I'm going to be like talk to you about something. You'll be like, I should buy that. Maybe that's the case. Hey, buddy. Hope you and the family are well. Yeah, we're going to Grandma's later tonight. I haven't been able to visit Grandma in, I think it's been like 6 weeks or something, which is too much. Need to. She wasn't feeling well enough to come to our family barbecue that we did, which I thought I would get to see her. She came last year, but as her mind is going more, it's a little more overwhelming to have that many people in the room. So we're going to go and just spend time with her tonight, just my wife and I, so that way it's more one-on-one and not so much for her. So yeah, get our grandma time in. That's the best way to describe business is whoa. Yeah. I guess it's not so much whoa. I think a mod should take care of all this disgusting soft taco talk. It's crispy or nothing. You're not wrong. You are not wrong. I haven't eaten a lot of quesadillas lately, though. That's true. My fertilizer has 0.0001% copper. Would that be safe for ghost shrimp? Yes. In fact, if your ghost shrimp don't get some copper, they will die. They need some copper. Some. Not a lot, but some. Pretty much every living thing needs lots of elements. Even, the analogy I use is if you drink too much water, you can kill yourself. Like, way too much water is bad for the human body. But we also die without water. Same thing would be for copper or shrimp. Like, absolutely none, that will be a problem. Too much, that will definitely kill them too. And most living things, it's all about the right balances of the nutrients and the things that are going into the bodies. It's also FOMO. Also can wait until I finish cleaning tanks, unlike this comment. I see. Fair enough. I'm always live streaming. I'm like, they're not buying anything. Like, maybe in my mind, I'm like, I guess I'm just terrible at telling you, like, you should buy our dechlorinator. When you run out, switch to our dechlorinator. It's basically the same as everybody else's, but a little bit cheaper, and you get a dosing cap, and you support us. Nothing wrong with that. And then the stores will have it. You can get it from them, and now you're supporting the store. And you probably think you are supporting the store, but you'd be surprised at the way a lot of companies work when you're like, wait, you only made $3 off that $20 sale with that dechlorinator? Like, yep, that's gotten pretty bad where they get to make a fair. The whole goal is that, we're fair with our stores and they're fair with the customer. And so we go out of our way and we spend a lot of time going, how do we get the right price so it's the right price for the customer, but the store also gets to stay open. Hey man, I'm struggling hard. I have a long question and I don't know if I can fit it all here, so I'm going to send regular chats and hope you can answer it for you. Yeah. Will it work? Can you hit the reply button? Does that on that super chat, will that work? I will do my best. I may need some help from mods or something like that to get it done, but I don't know if I know the answer to your question, but I will do my best for you. Am I in Team Harvest or Buy Hardscape for my aquariums? I am on Team Buy It because I have a hard time finding the stuff I like. It takes me, you have to go to several stores a lot of time, look at other people's rocks to find the rocks I like half the time. I lost my grandma last week. I spent a lot of time over there in college, and one of my first thoughts was how grateful I was for that time. I've got that same thing. I lived with my grandma for part of my high school years and everything, and she was always there for me, and so the guilt builds up when there's a few weeks where I haven't seen her, and I dread the time when I go and she doesn't remember me. So, yeah. Does the chlorinator have aloe vera in it? The current one I use already has it in. Ours does not because basically the chemical in ours that makes it super concentrated would break down the aloe vera. So we do not have aloe vera in it. And also the aloe vera goes against like carbon and like Purigen and stuff. You're using those, which most people aren't, but just throwing that factoid out there. Still keeping an eye out for Discover Purpose. Just hopefully I'll find it. Will the Easy Green ever have the option of a dosing cap? Yes, at some point, the Easy Green will switch over to only dosing caps. What we might be able to do, well, one thing I'm considering is making it so you could buy like a pump head if you wanted for like $1. We'd have to get that to be a separate item and all of that kind of stuff. But yeah, we might be able to do all that. Takes me years to go through a bottom of brine. Yep. Yeah. I've guided other companies before. When you launch a dechlorinator, really, it's really hard to convince people. Like if you have a bottle of Prime sitting there, like you should use Easy Dechlorinator because you're going, well, it's going to last me another 3 years. Like, yeah, in 3 years, try and remember to buy ours. It's much easier to focus on the people that are getting into the hobby and then going, yeah, just buy ours. It'll last you a long time. And so that's where the focus really is. And yeah, so I understand, you're in the middle of a bottle and it's going to take you a while. Like, yeah, when you got to re-up, consider ours. We'd be grateful for it. I really want to get those purple rocks yet, but I can't find them anywhere. Pretty much only at our retail store. I couldn't find them anywhere either. That's why I had to import them, and it cost me $1 billion. And we had to buy from a different supplier, and we had to fill a whole cargo container. And yeah, it took me years to find and get them in finally. I got a 75-gallon with some super small, flat-like worms on the glass. It's a fairly new setup. Just change water and keep it moving. For the most part, yeah, you might be describing planaria. If you don't want those, hop on Amazon, get like some planaria Be Gone or something. But if you don't have any fish yet, a lot of times any moderately sized fish will just eat them. So it might not be something you need to go out of your way to solve independently. You might be able to just get some fish in there and there went the problem. Gonna taco up for the guppy stream. Oh man, that sounds amazing. I should do that. I will probably, let's see, it's 2:25. Maybe I'll call it in the next like 10, 15, 20 minutes. So I got a little bit of time to use the restroom and get ready for the guppy live stream. I missed chat. Daughter had an 8-hour surgery. Woo. Days are blended together right now. Yeah, I'm sure the amount of stress and lack of sleep and all that builds up to be brutal. I'm going to spend a fortune when I come out there on my trip. It'll be so worth it. Yeah. If we get if we can figure out everything, there might be a time where we try and sell some rock type products on the website, but it is so hard. Not in like physically just shipping a rock, but just making it make sense. Or like once someone buys a light and then rocks and then 1.5 banana plants and then a mug, like all these things are like, oh, they could crush and break. And so you end up like that order ends up having 6 different shipping labels. And you're like, the shipping on that order was $92. Like that's crazy. So we got to figure out that kind of stuff of making it all make sense. Because just because you can sell it doesn't mean it'll make money, which is a weird concept. Yeah. Where was that comment I was just reading? Oh, here it was. I didn't finish it. Do you see do you see some way that you could have it in your new expansion area, a Dan's fish area, maybe a theme tank that rotates species every 2 or 3 months? Let me think. Probably not. No. What I mean by that is it doesn't make any sense to be like, I'm going to pay employees and overhead to display someone else's fish that we wouldn't necessarily be able to have in stock and then send them to the competitor, which in the retail store setting, Dan is a competitor. Online, he is not a competitor. So it probably will never make sense to bridge that gap, right? It just doesn't. Like to pay people $22.50 or more an hour and full benefits to be like, yeah, you spend an hour talking about how they should go spend their money on a website that we don't control, and then that just won't financially make sense. Where online, yeah, I can tell you to buy our crap, and then I can be like, hey, you're looking for fish? Yep, you're not by our retail store? Dan's Fish seems like a plausible thing. Go there. And then I go back to selling our stuff. But yeah, it's also my time. Like technically the co-op doesn't pay for this. Like I'm just a salaried employee, right? And so if I live stream for 3 extra hours, that doesn't cost more. But if we put an employee here who is not salary, like it does cost more. And if I was to spend 3 hours only talking about Dan's Fish, we then have spent basically hundreds of dollars to promote another business. And if they're not paying us to do that, it just doesn't make sense really. So that's why it probably wouldn't happen. Let's see here. Would you consider licensing this with the Simpsons so you could sell a co-op version of that hat? Would I consider it? Sure. Am I going to go out of my way to chase that down? Nope. My guess is like whoever made this hat didn't license it. I'm sure. It's my guess, but I would. If they approached me and it made sense, sure, easy mode. But most times when we have to start chasing something down, I don't think people have a lot of experience with actually doing that, where it can be weeks just to get somebody on an email like, hey, are you guys going to respond? And then they're like, okay, yep, we received it. It'll be a month before we have a response. Not a great example of that, but something I forgot to mention that made me think of this, where I'm trying to transition. Easy Carbon will not be coming back. It is now officially designated as a pesticide because it kills algae, so it is a pesticide, and we would have to do crazy amounts of paperwork in every single state to register it and do all of that to sell it. The next question you will have is, what about Flourish Excel and API Carbon Booster? From what I'm told, they will also be talked to or have already been talked to, and those companies will choose whether they're going to register them in every state also. So the reason why we stopped selling Easy Carbon is we were contacted by the EPA, and the EPA said, hey, this we think is actually a pesticide. Please stop selling it. And we did. And then it took 2 or 3 months or however long it's been for their scientists. We had to keep submitting evidence on how it's an organic carbon source and all of that as well. And they went through all of it, and they've determined that we still want to classify this as a pesticide. And these are the documents and all the things you would need to do in each state to sell that legally as a pesticide. And then we look at that and go, that looks like that is way too much process for this, for it to be viable, right? For for the amount of easy carbon we sell in Alabama or half of these states, like that does not make sense at all. So we won't be pushing forward at this time. Doesn't mean we wouldn't in 5 years or 2 years or something like that, but we will see how the others progress as well. Like it's definitely like ooh, all right. I suspect there'll just be a secondary market that shows up at everybody's local clubs and everything like they used to, where they're just now using more of a raw product and cutting it down. And so I think it'll still be accessible to people, but I don't think it'll be nearly, well, it won't be as readily available for us because it won't be available at all. And yeah, you never know. I mean, maybe you'll see Flourish Excel on our website because they will do all the paperwork and we'll sell it even, but who knows? I don't know. But I wanted to follow up on that, and the whole time I was basically, we were just going through that. And so you never know like what governmental agencies were working with and doing things, and like, why isn't the thing doing the thing? Like, well, because we're way too much time, energy deep into a project to just go, okay, yeah, I guess that's never going to be a thing anymore. So yeah, that's a bummer. So seems like lately I'm sunsetting as many products as we launch, and it's like lights are out of our control, EPA's out of my control, but hey, we'll keep moving forward. And that, I guess that's why, like, licensing this with the Simpsons, like, sure, but then the Simpsons IP will be sold to Universal Studios or something, and that won't work. And they'll be like, oh, I had to discontinue that hat. Like, oh, okay. I sent my question screenshot in chat. I sent my question screenshot in chat. All right, I'm going to look for it. I don't know if it showed up on our side. You might need to email it to customer service and we can try and help you. I'm looking for it. It's either I'm blind to your name or it's getting held back for something. I'm not seeing it. I sent my question screenshot in chat. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm just imagining Ethan Carbon being sold out of the back of a truck. You mean, yo man, is that the stuff? Full strength? Yep. I mean, we won't be doing that because that would be the worst thing we could do. But yeah, I could see stuff like that happening. Planted Goldie's been a member for 36 months. Congrats. Serious question: does what food we feed to our fish really matter? Because I'm convinced it doesn't really matter. My fish breed either way. I'm convinced it doesn't matter. In fact, I put a short out this week or last week or something that said that too. I'm not. I mean, I think there is some difference. Like feeding your goldfish burning car tires is clearly different than like, oh, this food that's been formulated for fish, right? But when it comes to aquarium co-op food, extreme food, Northfin, Hikari, pick 10 other brands, like, is it that much different? The answer is, I don't believe it's that much different. No. I think the amount of times, the mode at which it feeds, so is it floating, is it sinking, is it midwater, is it flake, is it pellet, is it wafer, I think those can have slight variances to them and could matter. And then I also think pricing matters a lot. I think how clean a food feeds out can matter. So there are preferences, but if you were to rephrase the question, like, does it really matter? Like, let's say you're a human, which you are, and you need to have a baby. Does it really matter if you eat at this restaurant or that fast food or home or your grandma's cooking or your mom's cooking or you're cooking? The answer is, short of not getting enough nutrients just all together, no, it doesn't really matter. A baby will probably happen, right? Now, you can definitely bring in preference of taste and what you think is healthy and prices and a bunch of other stuff. Yes, I do think there are some of that, but for the most part, if your fish is consuming a fish food, it probably is being a fish, is what I believe. Now, being that I put out a fish food, I will try to make it economical. I will try to make the mode in which it feeds well. I will try to make sure it's palatable. I will try to do all of these things to make it hopefully one of the best choices of fish food you can buy. But I will never be the new life spectrum where they told a 14-year-old kid to throw away his Repashy food and feed New Life Spectrum because it's that much better. That's just severely erroneous in my opinion. Let's see. How many plants should I buy if I'm setting up a 75-gallon would like to be planted heavily? I'm only doing guppies. How much food should I feed so many tiny guppies? Well, that's a lot. So this is a 150-gallon, right? So you'd be about half of that size. If you want it to be dense from day one, 30 potted plants, more. Like the more you can buy, kind of the better. Your wallet probably gives out before it does. Yeah, and as far as food, again, like how many guppies you got? Feed them a lot. Make sure food's not laying around 5-10 minutes later, but kind of a lot. Lori Ann, sad face. I thought you were starting at 3. I am starting the guppy live stream at 3. This is the extra live stream. The extra. The pre-game live stream. The pre-live stream live stream. You're cutting into your hard taco only argument there a little bit. See, soft taco and crunchy taco, that's a mode of feeding, and I still stand by that. Another month down, so many more to go. Need to get my 3-year coin still soon. Yeah, got to place some orders to get it. All right. Here is the question we've been trying to answer, and this will probably be my last one, and I'll take a break before I go live at 3. So, I just bought an Episto Cockatoides pair about 5 weeks ago. They went into my 35-gallon community tank, were fine for a few days, then the female started chasing the male, nipping at him, causing pretty bad damage to his back fin. I moved her to a breeder box for a week, reintroduced her, still did the same thing. So I finally put her in my dad's community tank. Earlier last week, I bought 2 more female Epistos and put them in the 20 long alone. So we're building quite the scene here. 3 different tanks with Epistogramma cockatoides at this point. I introduced the male with them, who was a little bigger, and then... So he's a little bigger than them. Then he followed them for a while, being interested. They were turning on their sides, looking like they were ready to breed, but nothing happened. A couple hours go by, and he starts chasing and nipping them to a point where they won't come out from behind the sponge filter. I moved both females into the 35-gallon community. I go and take my first female from my dad's community and put her in the 20-gallon long, hoping that things would be different now that they would pair. The male followed her around for an hour. She didn't turn her belly up at all. They just kept swimming away from him uninterested. An hour goes by, and he's nipping her like crazy to a point where she's hiding behind the sponge filter. I put her back in my dad's community tank, and now my male is just in a 20 long by himself. Because I don't know what to do, and I don't want him killing anything. There's plenty of caves and plants. I just don't know what to do. That is a lot. All right. So first, you can't be sure that you don't have extra sneaker males. So that means a female that looks like a male. 2, you are now up to 4 fish. If it were me and I owned these fish, I would put all 4 of them into the 35, 1 male, 3 females. You say you've got lots of plants, you've got lots of caves, and at some point you just have to let them do their thing. You can't guarantee that any of them will like each other. What I can almost guarantee is moving fish around a ton invites stress, which stress can lead to illness. I would be making sure you've got things like, in my opinion, the temperature needs to be at least 82 degrees to actually produce a pisto fry. It can be done without, but they are much more comfortable at the hotter temperature. I would be making sure that all of them have reached sexual maturity, right? I would be making sure that all of them are well fed enough so that they're ready to breed. And then I would also add dither fish to the aquarium. And I don't want them to eat fry, so I would add something like a Equus pencilfish or a hatchet fish, something that stays only up top, so that the male and the females are kind of watching a little bit and they want to stick more to the caves, and then making sure you have the appropriate caves where only they can fit in, but the female can trap the male out if they want to. And yes, you can get some like, hey, that looks like aggressive breeding, and it can be. The problem is there is no like, well, just spend $100 at Aquarium Co-op and it'll fix the problem. You kind of got to go, well, this is why mated pairs are worth more money and more sought after, and they like each other already. Those are more likely to have success than just buying unmated pairs or two fish and trying to pair things up. But I think all the fish into a 35. Okay, hold on. Rereading that, so they went into my 35-gallon community tank. If your goal, so I guess that's, you didn't actually say your goal is to breed them. Maybe it's just they look cool, but I'm guessing you want to breed them. I then would probably try, if it's a community tank, I would probably try all 4 fish in a 20 long so that I can control the environment. So there'd be enough caves, there's enough plants, there's enough dithers, and I would control it in that 20 long. That's probably, and I would put all 4 in there at the same time and kind of let them, they got to work out their territories and pick caves and do all those things. So yeah, it's not the easiest thing, especially now that you've got all those factors going on. But that's where I would focus, is get them all in one, get them to settle down, get him to start breeding, let him, one male to all the females, he can divert all the attention, split up 3 ways, probably won't be too detrimental if you have enough hiding spots. That's my, that's where I'm at. All right. So I'm going to cut this loose. I've got about 15 minutes to grab something to drink, use the restroom, and we'll be back in 15 minutes, and we're going to go to the live stream about guppies, which was the normally scheduled one. So don't worry. If you got here late, this was impromptu. And yeah, we'll see you then. Thanks for showing up. I'll see you in a few minutes. I will get ready for the next one. If you need that link, follow it in the chat. Otherwise, you'll get a notification. And yeah, we'll see you in a few minutes.